Ladies and gentlemen, we're back for anyone listening out there in Radio Land. Holy crap, I got Renaissance Ted on the line. How you doing, Ted?
Yeah, not too bad. Richard, heard you had a bang-up segment last one there.
Oh, yeah, man. Astro, he took us far out. That dude's smart, man. He knows his stuff.
I cannot wait to review that one.
We went into Robert Bigelow. We went into Richard Branson, Bezos. They're all doing the space race with Elon Musk. Great stuff, man. Great stuff happening.
Outstanding.
Space Force. So, what do you got for me tonight, brother?
Well, I was shooting for geopolitics to make some kind of sense out of the Middle East, maybe for the first time in history, and I was going to go with current geopolitics, and then as I kept on going, I kept finding out that, well, this is tied to that, and that's tied to that, and that's tied to that, and that's tied to that. And pretty soon I'm all the way back at 1785, which gets pretty interesting.
1785.
Yeah, then when I start building it back up from 1785, everything starts to make sense again. So I think I can make sense of modern geopolitics by starting in 1785.
1785, that's not too long after 1776, almost 10 years.
That is correct.
Almost 10 years.
Yeah, exactly. 1776, of course, obviously the year of the Declaration of Independence. Also, 1776 was the year of the founding of the Bavarian Illuminati, coincidentally. So interesting little bit there. And kind of the way I started getting into this, or the way I ended up where I ended up in 1785, is because, that our history, our geopolitics, if you ignore war, of course, you've ignored the entire thing, because it's almost all war, right?
Yeah.
Okay,
yeah.
So in 1785, a detailed plan of the French Revolution was found before the revolution ever happened, right? As it happened, a courier who was actually traveling from the Rothschild Bank in France was struck by lightning on his way to go talk to Adam Weishaupt, the founder of the Bavarian Illuminati. And his horse and his person were, reduced to charcoal, which was probably appropriate. But in the saddlebags, which weren't damaged, they found the detailed plans for the French Revolution, which of course had not happened yet. It was still 4 years away.
Wow.
And so the Bavarian government found these plans for the French Revolution and even worse stuff in these saddlebags, right? So they published this thing called Proofs of a Conspiracy Against All the Religions and Government of Europe, carried on in the secret meetings of Freemasons, Illuminati, and reading societies.
Whoa.
Collected from good authorities. And they published this far and wide to all the church leaders and all the national leaders in Europe from one end to the other, okay? And so everybody in Europe was now warned about the plans for the Bavarian Illuminati and their plan to foment revolution in a bloody fashion and take over the planet. And
jeez.
Now this is 1785, right? And one of the things contained in that document that I just mentioned is sort of in general, let's boil their rules down to a few things, right? They have like 7 rules, and their rules for revolutionaries is what they called them. And these rules were actually created because when they tried to take over England under Cromwell, they got kicked out of England. They had some trouble there, right? The bankers, the people who were involved in pernicious usury or creating money from nothing. Again, we're just going to call this fractional reserve banking by another name is where it started, right?
We all know about that.
Yeah, so one of the, there are like 7 basic tenets. I mean, the whole thing's 140 pages, I believe. I printed the whole thing out. I've just burned out a cartridge today. It's been great.
Nice.
Yeah, so let's go over the 7 points of the Weishaupt, Adam Weishaupt plan, sort of, in just in nutshell form here, that were found in those saddlebags of the horse and Jacob Lanz, who was struck by lightning, right?
Yeah.
Well, number 1 is the abolition of all ordered governments. Number 2, the abolition of private property.
Ooh.
Number 3, the abolition of inheritance. Inheritance tax, anybody?
Well, that sounds very familiar to nowadays.
Yeah. Number 4, the abolition of patriotism. Number
That's
5,
bullshit.
yeah, the abolition of family. Okay, we're getting pretty serious here now. Number 6, the abolition of religion.
Oh.
And number 7, the creation of a world government. And this is from 1785. Okay, I mean this is old stuff here. That's when it was found. I mean, he originally penned the stuff in 1776.
Who was this again?
Now, this was Adam Weishaupt.
Weishaupt.
Weishaupt. And I may be messing up that pronunciation. I am. His code name, by the way, was Spartacus. If you've been following Chuck Schumer lately.
Or Lindsey Graham. They were calling him Spartacus.
Oh, yeah. I don't know. Lindsey Graham has been a little bit, I don't know, following the politics a little bit here. Lindsey Graham looks like he's kind of on our side of the fence a little more lately.
Well, that's what it's like after you drink a Red Bull. That could be a Red Bull commercial.
Yeah, there you go.
So, what do you think? What do you think it is? That sounds a lot like what they're trying to do today, right?
Oh yeah, exactly. And I mean, these are almost right out of. These were slightly more codified, but I mean, if you read the Communist Manifesto, which I also printed out, you'll find a lot of those exact elements are in the Communist Manifesto. So
yes, yeah.
You have that there. Now, here's another interesting thing from 1785, right? Now, once this was discovered, Adam Weishaupt had to go on the run, right? Because he was wanted all over Europe, and he was in serious trouble for fomenting what was apparently, the French Revolution.
Right.
The reason the French Revolution got so bloody is because the Rothschilds learned from their experience in 1650 in England when they attempted to take over the financial system of England under Cromwell.
Oh.
Because they had a big kickback under Cromwell. Cromwell was defeated, of course, and killed. I think they even dug up his body and cut off his head once they found him. I mean, they were really mad at him. and so they learned from their mistakes, and something that they explicitly mentioned in Adam Weishaupt's proof of conspiracy situation here. One of the things they specifically mentioned is that they did not get bloody enough in England. They did not kill all the enemies. They didn't do it right. You know what I mean? They thought they needed to get more bloody. So, I mean, during the French Revolution, of course, the streets just ran with blood,
Yeah, right.
And, there we had the Rothschilds, again, funding both sides. And, when they fund both sides in a conflict or fund both sides in a war, in order to loan the money to both sides, what they do is they make sure that there is an agreement in place. And this holds true for literally every war up till the present day. So we're just going to follow this as the history of war for a couple hundred years just to make it go fast, right?
That sounds good to me. I mean, that sounds like what they've been doing. History of war.
Exactly. Yeah, and I would posit that everything from 1650 onwards has just been the use of war to increase the fortunes and to destroy the population and bring it under control of specifically the Rothschild family, along with the Rockefellers here and there, We've got a couple of them,
Yeah, they're the salt of the earth. Not really.
Yeah. So they said, okay, the English Revolution, we didn't kill enough people, so they came back and kind of got us, right? So this time we're going to really get them. And so they loan money to both sides, and then they make an agreement with both sides, using different bankers who are, by the way, both brothers or cousins from the Rothschild family. And each side has to agree in order to get the loan that they will cover the losses of the loser.
Oh.
You know what I mean? So, like, if say we win a war, right? We quote unquote won World War II. Who rebuilt the whole freaking planet? Have you ever heard of the Marshall Plan? That was us. That's because the Rothschilds, in exchange for loaning us the money to go to war against the whole world, we had to rebuild the whole world. And then the Rothschilds not only financed both halves of the war and took all the money thereby arising, they also financed the rebuilding. So they double dip and pull that off, and they don't have to worry about a loss because their losses are guaranteed by the victor in exchange for the loaning the money in the
Holy
first place
crap.
to go to war.
Well, you think they're still doing this to this day?
Oh, they're doing it right now. It's still going, and right now there's kind of a war going on to control the Federal Reserve.
Yeah. Yeah. Well,
in America. Now we can bring this forward to the American Revolution, right? Oh, here's the kicker, right? So I'm looking around for Adam Weishaupt, seeing where he ended up, right? And one of the specialties of the Khazarian Mafia back when they used to be robbers and brigands in Khazaria down by the Black Sea is they used to kill and impersonate the people who came through, so they would go and take over their wealth, right?
Oh, God. Sounds familiar.
Adam Weishaupt looks exactly like George Washington.
Does he?
I mean,
how do you spell his last name? I'm going to pull him up for this game.
Weishaupt. And if you type in
Shaupt. It just popped up. Obviously, some
Yeah.
other people are looking for him. Let's pull up
So
a
yeah,
picture
so
here.
now throw Weishaupt and Washington and put the pictures next to each other. There's an astonishing resemblance.
Of him in Washington? Let's
Yeah,
see.
George Washington.
There's
Yeah.
Adam Weishaupt. Yeah, he does look a little bit like George Washington. Are you saying he was?
Oh, I'm not saying he was or wasn't. All I'm saying is that he looks an awfully lot like it, and there is a lot of people out there who think they were one and the same person, and there are sort of indications to indicate throughout their other writings that they might be the same person.
Wow.
So our famous George Washington, and you know, I studied George Washington in fair depth, and I found him very confusing, the things he did. And so now I'm going to have to restudy it with a new lens, right? My new lens is, just in case anyone wants to know the process I go through when I do this research, right, to make sense out of this.
Trivium? No.
Close
enough.
The Trivium method for sure, but
Yeah.
let's say in a little more concrete way, like you're on Google.
Right.
And you don't have time to study the entire Trivium method, right?
Right.
So for politicians, if you want to figure out what the hell a politician's doing, I type in their name, and then I type in the letter CFR, Council on Foreign Relations, and I type in the word Trilateral Commission. That tells me if the politician is in the Council on Foreign Relations or the Trilateral Commission. That's the first thing I try to get out of the way.
Wow. Smart.
Now anything I want to study, say I want to study the Mexican-American War, the Spanish-American War, et cetera, blah, 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 any event, right? I type in the name of the event, and then I just type in the name Rothschild right after it. And it usually it comes up that they're involved in the damn thing. So if it involves shooting people or stealing things, Rothschild comes up right away, right?
Wow.
If you just add Rothschild to the end of the term, right?
Yeah.
Now say we got a lot of other things like Teddy Roosevelt, the Roosevelt family. Their real name was Rosenfeld. Stalin, Lenin, Trotsky, all these guys, that's not their real names, right? So if you type in any historical figure who is involved in any of this crap, just type in the word real name afterwards, and you'll find out if they have a different name and they're operating under a pseudonym, and that tells you a whole bunch, right?
Oh, wow.
Yeah, and so like if you type in the assassination of a president and then add the word Rothschild against it, you'll find that we got like 7 presidents who were assassinated by the Rothschilds for various things, right? But I was going to try to go chronologically. I get ahead of myself and take tangents all the time. We did mention in 1785 that book that was written by the Bavarian monarchy in order to warn the rest of Europe, which was proofs of a conspiracy against religions and governments in Europe. Basically, that sort of warned everybody about the French Revolution, but the French didn't take heed, or they were already bought off. So the French Revolution happened anyway, and the Rothschilds profited dramatically, and they took over the financial system of the French government by shorting their bonds during the Revolution.
Of course.
Yeah, and they're pretty smart stuff. I can't deny that these guys aren't brilliant, you know.
Well,
brilliantly bring it back to
nefarious.
Oh yeah, definitely brilliant. Yeah, they're some nefarious dudes, right? And that's why I'll say the entire history of the world since the 1600s has been written by the Rothschilds. I mean, everything you read in the history book, you can type in World War I and type in Rothschild. It's going to change the whole perspective on it. You know?
Yeah.
Every single item, every single incident has an entire backstory that they absolutely will not tell you. And if everybody knew that the Rothschilds were funding both sides of every war we have ever been in.
Yeah, there's been a lot of conspiracies like that that they do. They're on both sides, and we have the illusion of choice most of the time, right?
Exactly, you know.
Well, what's going on now? Obviously, we're knee-deep in a war here in our own country, it seems like, against our own politicians. It seems that this war between Trump and the deep state's heating up. What do you think? Do you think we can look in the past and see how this all's built up and who might be behind?
Well, let's roll quick through the. We have to bring in a couple other elements before we quite get to where we're at right now, and then I can tell you why I think what we might be doing might be pretty close to something that could possibly be on the right track here.
Okay.
But it's not going to hold together unless we kind of bring it forward from that 1785 time, right?
Yeah.
So let's roll through this. We got 1791, right? We got the new Congress of the United States of America. We're formed as a nation, et cetera, et cetera. And under Alexander Hamilton and George Washington, they chartered the first Rothschild Bank of America, the first national bank of the United States, right? Which was neither a national bank nor of the United States. It was strictly a Rothschild corporation.
Yeah.
And they chartered it for 20 years, right? Now, so 1791, okay, let's go forward. In exchange for funding the revolution against the British, who they also funded, by the way, in exchange for doing so, they had to be allowed to have their Rothschild Bank in America. So they got a 20-year charter for the Rothschild Central Bank in America. They could print the currency, fractional reserve banking, no monetary gold backing whatsoever, right? Just fake money again.
Yeah.
And okay, now we bring that up to 1811. Well, gee, the charter ran out. Well, John Adams refused to renew the charter, so the Rothschilds brought Britain into war against us in 1812.
We had it that early. I didn't know that.
Oh, yeah, exactly.
I didn't know that.
Well,
I thought it's all kind of they tried to creep their way in with Andrew Jackson.
Oh, well, Andrew Jackson, okay, he is the one who staunchly stopped it in 1836, or 1832, rather. In fact, Andrew Jackson's presidential slogan when he re-ran in 1832 was "Me and no bank." That was his campaign slogan. So it's like these things have been known for a long time. Americans don't seem to know it right now, but I mean, we used to know this stuff in the past, right?
Yeah.
Well, so we did. Yeah, we didn't renew the charter in 1811, hence the war in 1812. Right, and we fought the British, and we basically sort of got our tail kicked until Andrew Jackson came in and defeated the British in 1814. We took a little trip along with Colonel Jackson down the mighty Mississippi, et cetera, et cetera. And however, in 1816, John Adams capitulated and renewed the charter.
Oh, man.
So we once again had a Rothschild Central Bank. Now let's just fast forward to Andrew Jackson, which is, I have some hope here. Donald Trump constantly refers to Andrew Jackson. He says, one of his favorite presidents. Misunderstood. He's a nice guy, right? And all the left says, oh, Andrew Jackson killed all the Indians. Not true. The Rothschilds killed all the Indians, and I can lay into that a little while later. But I mean, the Khazarian mafia operates, and I would argue that the Rothschilds, of course, are the head of the current Khazarian mafia. They operate through plague all throughout history. So they created the Justinian plague, and they created the bubonic plague.
Yeah, we were talking about this on one of the earlier podcasts about that they really create these plagues, it seems like, it's part of their agenda. And it seems like we are seeing some of that now, a little bit. They're trying to creep some stuff. When we see these planes flying into the country that's quarantined and stuff like that.
Yeah, or like, the Spanish influenza virus of 1918. Everybody going home from Europe was summarily infected with plague and brought that, the Spanish flu brought back to America.
Mad cow disease. Watch out for that one.
Oh, yeah. Or how about Ebola? The strain of Ebola, that last strain that created that big outbreak in Africa, that was a patented strain of Ebola, and it was patented by our own people. It's on file at the CDC.
What is it that Bill Gates takes to Africa and injects people with it's to stop AIDS, isn't it? Is it AIDS?
Actually, it stops reproduction, which I believe has been sued by Kenya because he was putting sterilization agents. Yeah, look at Bill Gates' dad. Bill Gates' dad, right, and Margaret Sanger are the ones who started Planned Parenthood. And if you read some of their writings, they're all about we're going to get rid of the Chinese and we're going to get rid of the black people and we're going to get rid of these people, which is why to this day, Planned Parenthood is, I can't figure out why Black Lives Matter haven't picked up on this, but almost half, I think over half of all black babies are aborted.
Wow. That's just crying shame.
Oh yeah, absolutely. But okay, let's grab so Andrew Jackson's in, right? Andrew Jackson threw the bankers out, for which trouble he was shot.
Famous last words: "I killed the banks."
Well, they shot him. There wasn't really a secret service, but Andrew Jackson had a 6-gun, so he held up pretty well for himself. He did a nice job. Yeah, he survived, and he got rid of the bank. So we didn't have a central bank, right? And the Rothschilds, they weren't able to put together another war to go up against the United States. We were getting a little bit too tough by that point in time. You know what I mean?
Yep. I know what you mean.
What they did is through secret societies, they took over the governments of both the North and the South in the United States. Abraham Lincoln's entire, it's called the Golden Circle, which are the Order of the Golden Circle, like are Knights of the Golden Circle. So we had almost the entire cabinet in the southern states and the entire cabinet of the northern states were these Knights of the Golden Circle who were Rothschild agents.
Wow.
And they're the ones who started this, anything they could think of to start a battle splitting America in half, So the whole slavery thing's kind of a red herring, tariffs is a red herring, et cetera, et cetera. It's all sort of red herring. And Lincoln was kind of riding herd on all this, right?
Yeah.
And I think Lincoln was kind of, I don't know, he passed a lot of strange legislation that I couldn't say I agreed with, looked quite totalitarian, so it would make me suspect he was on their side. But then at the end, he issued gold-backed greenbacks from the U.S. Treasury, $450 million worth. And
yeah, he did that. What was that about, man?
Oh, that's the reason he got shot. John Wilkes Booth, another member of the Knights of the Golden Circle, then shot him.
Man,
now,
it seems like it's always about money, about them trying to control our money.
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely. And there's a whole bunch more that nobody knows about the Civil War. So
yeah.
The French, the Spanish, and the English had troops stationed, lots of them, in Mexico and Canada.
Okay.
During the Civil War, ready to come across the borders as soon as the guns started firing, supporting both sides. The Rothschilds were funding both sides of the war. They were funding all the other countries attempting to get involved. The Russians sent their navy, which, by the way, they had a quite powerful navy at the time. The Russians sent their navy, blockaded the English, the Spanish, and the French, and said, if you cross the border into America, we're going to come after you.
Oh.
So the Russians are the one that prevented the American Civil War from becoming simply a takeover by the Rothschilds and a takedown.
Wow.
Now, they still operated through assassination, right? They're trying to get a central bank started under McKinley, and they were trying to start the Spanish-American War. They weren't able to do it, so they had McKinley shot and put Teddy Roosevelt in place.
Right.
So we get the Spanish-American War, right? You remember the Maine, right? The Maine was blown up in Havana Harbor.
Oh yeah.
And they said, it was the Spanish. They mined the harbor and blew up our ship. Well, it didn't happen that way. Even the mainstream sources are now agreeing that, yes, okay, it blew up from the inside out.
Well, that's like the Titanic. I mean, they said that there was a coal fire on the Titanic. It started in the middle of the pile, and all the people or the guys that were working in the engine room were like, what the hell? How did this happen?
Really? So they hit an iceberg and they started on fire?
Well, a lot of people really wonder about that. That's a rabbit hole in itself, but
yeah. And keep in mind all the American billionaires who were fighting against the Federal Reserve being instituted, another Rothschild bank, they were all killed on the Titanic, or so the story goes.
Oh yeah,
they all went down with the ship.
Yep, a lot of them. Yeah, it's crazy.
Yeah.
So what? Correct me if I'm wrong on JFK. Didn't he have an executive order before he was assassinated to give the Treasury the ability to print money backed by silver? Or am I thinking of something?
Oh, yeah. It's like Executive Order 100011 or something like that. I can't remember. It was very digital, though. I'd like to decode that in terms of digital.
Yeah. That's some kind of Q stuff there where they decode all that Q stuff. That sounds like one of those.
So, yeah. As soon as he did that, he was shot. The same thing. Lincoln issued currency. He was shot. We got some other ones like William Henry Harrison in 1841. After Jackson was no longer president, he refused the central bank. He was poisoned. I mean, and the list just goes on, right?
Right.
And and just right after, so the Russians stopped the Rothschilds from taking over America, right?
Really?
Now, in 1871, the Rothschilds called a World Congress of all the banks and all the leaders in Europe and all the heads of the church. They said these wars are horrible. We need to do a better job. We need to have a United Nations, a one world government to take this over. Well, who but the Tsar of Russia stood up with proofs of a conspiracy against all the religions and governments of Europe from the Bavarian government, but the Tsar of Russia. He stood up and said, this is what they're doing. Nobody listened to it. And the Rothschilds swore that they would never, ever, ever allow Russia to survive at that point.
Dang.
Also, 1871, I'm not sure if it's related. I haven't found this yet. I'm sure there's got to be a connection. The same year, we went from being a republic of Philadelphia to being an incorporated republic in Washington, D.C.
Yeah, I've heard
Something
about that
there.
Too.
I haven't found out exactly how.
That's interesting too, because as I've grown up, I've realized DC's kind of its own state in a way. How did that happen? Because it's kind of like Virginia, Maryland, and all those states. I wonder. I've heard about the incorporation too. So it started in Philadelphia as a republic, and then they incorporated and made D.C. at that time, 1871?
Yeah, if I understand that correctly, even though the
Okay.
capital was in D.C. ahead of that. Now I think the trilateral group, the triangle with the three vertices, one of them is the City of London, which, by the way, the City of London is a separate nation all by itself. When you hear someone say City of London on the news,
Uh-huh.
they're talking about a country. It's the City of London,
Okay.
which specifically describes the financial district in London.
District
Now,
of
the Vatican.
Columbia. Wow.
Yeah, now the District of Columbia, there we go. That's another district, right? So we
District.
have, yeah, and then we have the Vatican, another district.
Well,
in
the
a way.
Vatican
So
is
we
its
have-
own nation, isn't it? It's the smallest
Exactly.
nation on Earth.
Same with the City of London, and I believe the same with the District
Really?
of Columbia. Together, they formulate the Trilateral Commission. In other
Oh.
words, the Vatican is the spiritual center.
Yep.
The
The
City
London
of
is the
London
money,
is the
and
monetary.
we're the arm. We're the
We are the war. We
yeah.
bring
We're the
war.
force. Right.
And that's what we've been used for. I mean, the American people have been used as the military arm of the Rothschild Empire ever since 1914, thanks to Mr. Wilson. Since we got to 1914, let's stop at 1905 just for a second with Teddy Roosevelt, right?
Yeah.
Teddy Roosevelt, I think he's a complete jerk.
Really?
and
Why
I
is he
know
a
he's
jerk? Did he
hero in
push
North
you around or
Dakota.
something?
Yeah, exactly. No, he pushed everybody around back then.
Did
He
he?
met with H.G. Wells. H.G. Wells had this plan in some of his writings.
Oh man,
like,
you're bringing
in
H.G. Wells into this.
Yeah, in his book Anticipation and his book Utopia, H.G. Wells advocated the complete removal of the middle class and a return to simply the upper class and the serfs. And Teddy Roosevelt was so impressed by this that he brought him to the White House and had him as an honored guest, where they made plans to create. And this will come into play later. They made plans at that point in time where they're going to institute this in America.
Yeah.
Now, to institute this, they needed a Federal Reserve because, as everyone knows, the Rothschilds said, allow me to print the nation's currency, and I care not who writes its laws.
Exactly. We've all heard that one.
Yeah. Now, Woodrow Wilson, he got caught having an affair with another professor's wife when he was in college, and one of the Rothschild representatives came to him and said, oh, you know what, by the way, I mean, not that we're going to do anything about it, but this woman is demanding $40,000 in order to keep quiet about your affair. So Woodrow Wilson was kind of worried that he would get busted, because at that point in time, an affair was something that would get you out of office right away.
Yeah, well,
so
they're
Woodrow
still
Wilson,
using those tactics.
Exactly. Yeah. So Woodrow Wilson went ahead and I think people have smartened up. They realized that, good governance and good personal behavior aren't necessarily always connected. Sometimes they seem to be opposite,
Yeah.
Well,
we look at what's going on
Woodrow,
with Kavanaugh. Jeez, I mean, that was a systematic bullshit is what it was. I think everybody knows that.
I don't know. I haven't followed Kavanaugh for a couple days, but has he been removed, or is he still in play, or what's going on there?
I think they're doing a FBI investigation on him now. I'm on GLP right now. Let's see. Oh man, it's moving so fast. President Trump said the FBI investigation will be a blessing in disguise. It will be a good thing. I don't know.
Oh, that's exactly that was exactly my. I heard that he had an FBI investigation, and I thought that's the best thing they could possibly do.
Yeah, so they're saying the Kavanaugh. We got a thread here on GLP that's Kavanaugh updates. Breaking: Grassley makes criminal referral to FBI for false statements against Kavanaugh.
Yeah, that makes perfect sense because Brett Kavanaugh. He comes from the Washington D.C. District Court, correct? And
yes.
So he was appointed by the Senate. So he's already been through a Senate confirmation hearing, which involved a massive FBI investigation.
He flew on the Air Force One with George Bush, to all over the world. You don't get on that plane unless you're checked out thoroughly, and you don't become, in service. He's already been through all this.
Yeah, just on the basis of his previous appointments, he's already had 6 FBI investigations and background checks. Now, his latest accuser, the first accuser was he molested me in high school. The second accuser was he made advances in college, right? The third accuser was he was involved in a rape gang that had parties every weekend for 3 years, and at every party, they put girls in a room and lined up and gang raped all these girls, 2 or 3 of them. So, okay, let's just do the math on this one. So we got, 50 parties a year or something?
Guys partying.
Okay. Yeah, and say 2 or 3 girls gang raped at each party, in addition to a bunch of girls who know, because the person who is making this accusation
Yeah, what
said
took
she
them to?
witnessed this. Yeah, she said she witnessed this behavior repeatedly. So apparently she didn't say anything either. Um, so
No.
we got 50 parties a year times 3 girls per party. So that's 150 girls per year times 3 years. So that's what's that? 450 girls. And and so 450 girls were gang raped with help of Brett Kavanaugh,
Nice.
and not a single one of the women who was involved, either as in witnessing it or as in having
Yeah.
it occur to them, ever made a police report, ever reported anything. Nobody heard anything. He's
It's
been
all
through 6
bullshit.
FBI investigations. That's why I say it's a good thing, is because
Yeah.
on the surface of it, I don't even have to know the story. I just apply logic on the surface of the whole thing. If you just apply logic, like, okay, this many girls, this many years, this many stated FBI previous investigations, already a Senate confirmation, not a word of this the whole time?
Right.
Really?
Right.
Not
No,
one
nothing.
word.
No, that's why it's all bullshit. We know it. I
Uh-huh.
mean, this whole thing, and now Trump's going to do, or the FBI is doing an investigation. It's kind of funny, especially after everything we've been through in this country in the last couple of years. The FBI is doing the investigation on him.
Well, if we were doing a takedown of the nearly complete New World Order, and I would argue that that looks like it's a good possibility, this is the way it's got to go. And if we have a week-long investigation of Brett Kavanaugh, hey, I'm kind of hoping there's more. I mean, this is all kabuki theater. Everything that hits the news, they're going to sexualize it. They're going to do this because that gets people's attention, so they're
Yeah.
not watching what's behind the freaking curtain.
Right.
So something's going on behind the curtain. If Trump says it's a great thing to do this, and there's this big media circus going on, 24/7 news coverage on every single channel, you can bet something behind the
Yep.
scenes is going on.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. Now,
Yeah,
the most important thing regarding the Kavanaugh investigation, and I listen to C-SPAN a lot because I have so much damn time when I'm trucking about. Not that we're supposed to listen to podcasts when we truck about, but I do. and and so the most important thing was Lindsey Graham, and this is in relation to Trump's executive order that allowed. Okay, Trump put out the executive order that allows the United States government to freeze and confiscate the assets of pedophiles and people convicted of crimes against humanity, right?
Yep. I remember that.
Which describes all the usual suspects in the New World Order. And then you go down the executive order list a little bit further, and you come to this really obscure one that just talks about alterations to the Uniform Code of Military Justice. That one, what they're specifically describing there, even though they just say, oh, in paragraph 3, we're going to change it to plus, and in paragraph 4, we're going to change it to this. If you read his list of executive orders on whitehouse.gov, right, the gist of what they did, and I was kind of interested in this one because, I'm an ex-military dude, and
Right.
what they did is they allowed, that executive order allows the military tribunals to have and retain the assistance of civilian entities in military court. In other words, if we have 51,500 pedophile and trafficking and corruption indictments coming out of Utah under Huber, there's no way the military has enough courts to handle this, so they would have to add civilian entities to the military court to handle it.
Wow. Yeah.
So that's my read on that. Now, Lindsey Graham, when he questioned Kavanaugh, and this never made the news, by the way. I mean, it made C-SPAN because they just did the whole damn thing.
Right.
But I mean, then the news focused on the guys who were yelling, the protesters, and all that, whatever that garbage is, and which is kabuki theater. I mean, try to gaze through the theater and see what's really going on. Anytime you see theater, look for what's behind it.
Yep.
And so Lindsey Graham questions him specifically on how he feels about using military tribunals to go after people who are
man.
treasonous.
Seen that.
Yeah.
You think it's really happening? You think it's gonna happen? Military tribunals? That's gonna happen?
Once I bring us back from 1905, I can tell you why I think we got a good possibility.
Okay.
So at this point in time, let's run back to Theodore Roosevelt and H.G. Wells. Because, H.G. Wells was advocating the complete removal of the middle class, not only removing them, but killing them.
Oh.
Once we go, that's what he was advocating right out of Adam Weishaupt's Rules for Revolution in France.
Okay.
Kill the people you're competing against. Otherwise, they're going to come back and get you. So H.G. Wells is advocating killing the middle class, and Theodore Roosevelt hails him as the national hero. And that was in 1905. Now, the two things he wrote before that, 1903 and 1904 and 1902, were both regarding killing the middle class and getting rid of us all.
Yeah.
So to have Theodore Roosevelt in office, coming out and saying, and by the way, Roosevelt, real name, Rosenfeld, not Roosevelt. Type in real name, Theodore Roosevelt is not his real name. It's Rosenfeld.
Rosenfeld. Oh.
Which ties us directly back to the Khazarian Mafia.
Yeah. This guy's
so
Astrobuzz is back in the chat. Thanks for tuning back in, Astrobuzz. He says, bottom line, Kavanaugh will be a Supreme Court judge.
Yeah, this is just kabuki theater to the lead-up.
Yeah. I think, haven't they already voted on him? I thought they already voted on him, but now they're...
on Friday.
Oh, are they?
I thought last Friday they voted, like the Friday passed. I thought they voted on him, but I didn't follow it. I was kind of studying. I got buried in the rabbit hole of the history of war for a couple days here, so I've been kind of my head has been down.
I love it, man. You're doing your research.
But yes, and most of this comes out like all these documents I'm listing. These are PDFs that I just downloaded the PDF off the internet for free.
Yeah, right.
At the cost of a printer cartridge. But I mean. You don't have to go buy them all. They're out there. Communist Manifesto.
They are.
All these things.
They are, absolutely.
So let's bring this forward now. We can look at 1905. Okay, Theodore Roosevelt, we already have him as being pretty fucking questionable. And I think Theodore Roosevelt was involved in the shooting of McKinley. And McKinley, I think, got shot because he would not get into the Spanish-American War. Once he was shot, Roosevelt came in. We went right to the Spanish-American War.
Wow.
Remember the Maine, right?
Yep.
And okay, let's just skip a few things here and let's run forward to 1914. Woodrow Wilson institutes the Federal Reserve, right?
Yep.
Now,
1 year after the Titanic sank.
Yeah, exactly. After they got rid of the opposition from America's billionaires who didn't want it.
Yep.
Now, the other part of this is World War I. Obviously, who's the big dog in the room? 1914 is World War I, right? Or in 1913, it was the Federal Reserve getting instituted. In addition to the IRS at the same time, and in addition to the graduated income tax. By the way,
that's what came after the Federal Reserve was income tax, right?
Yeah, and both the Federal Reserve and the graduated income tax are directly taken from the Communist Manifesto. There's no other way to read it. They're right on there. Like number 1 and 2 of the Communist Manifesto, which was written by Karl Marx, of course. Again, not his real name. His real name is Levi. He's tied into the Khazarian Mafia. It just keeps going. It never ends, man. It's just like
Levi
it's amazing.
genes, man. Oh.
Yeah. I haven't thought. Maybe he's connected. I don't know. Maybe our genes are made by the same family that gave us the Communist Manifesto.
Yeah. Well, there's some people out there that follow Q. Q's an interesting aspect. A lot of people think he's a LARP. They say he's a LARP. I don't know. How the hell should I know? But he does drop some stuff that seems weird. Let's go ahead and check just over here on the Q-Tard site.
I think the best thing about Q is he gets a whole lot of people looking behind the curtain. I don't care if he's real or not. He gets people looking at this stuff.
Some of his stuff, it's kind of weird. See, this one says Splash 1X Air Patrol. These are like codes or something. I don't know. Who knows? But it shows the inside of a plane. They're saying now that the did you hear about the F-35 that crashed yesterday?
Ooh, no, where was that?
South Carolina.
Fill me up.
Yes, I believe South Carolina. Let's check. F-35 crash. Google. Yeah. F-35 fighter jet crashes in South Carolina on the day that $11.5 billion deal is announced. Okay. Yeah, I don't know about all these fake news places. Let's see if we can find one. Oh my gosh. Yeah, so anyways, it crashed, and they were saying it was a attempted assassination at Trump now. I don't know if that's true or not.
But that'd be attempt number 105 or something like that at this point in time.
They want him dead for sure, it seems like.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
But yeah, they keep going. Assassination, like I say, I believe we've 7 presidents assassinated by the Rothschilds thus far for not playing ball with them.
Right.
So let's grab World War I, right? So 1914, World War I kicks off. 1915, 1916. In 1916, the Germans had everybody beat. They literally had pounded everybody. The Russians were running back to Russia. The English were out of money. They were out of bullets. They had nothing. The French army was in complete mutiny. And
Yeah.
Germany offered terms of surrender to Britain. They said you can just quit this war. We'll all go home, and nobody has to be put out or anything. Just go home. We'll all just end the war, right?
Yeah.
Which is pretty magnanimous for a country that just won the war.
Right.
And well, the Lord Rothschild once again, he goes to the king and he says, "Hey, you know what? You don't have to give up on the war. You can win this war. We'll fund you, and we'll keep it going as long as you, and we'll bring in the United States as long as you give us Palestine." It's called the Balfour Accord. You can pull the Balfour Accord up. It's a very short letter. And it's a certified letter. It's been out there for years. Nobody contests its reality or anything. So it's the Balfour Accord, in which the British government signs up and gives Palestine to the Rothschilds in exchange for the Rothschilds bringing in the United States.
That's very interesting. You just mentioned Palestine. There's a new post on GLP. Palestine never existed. That's another conspiracy.
Well,
I guess.
Palestine is a regional description of that whole area.
Yeah, right.
Yeah, we have Palestinians they live in Palestine.
Yeah.
You know, and more importantly, they call it Palestine. So the Rothschilds call it Palestine. So who am I to argue? They got the money. You know? And so they wanted the whole thing. Interesting enough, we're talking about the Khazarian mafia that comes out of Khazaria, which I think we discussed before, back all the way from 400 BC, which is related back to the Babylonian money changers and so forth.
Yeah.
And so people say, okay, they're Jewish and now they're Israeli because largely 97.5% of Israelis are actually Khazaris. They're not Semites. They're not Semitic. So to say you're anti-Semitic if you say anything bad about Israel's behavior is actually a non sequitur because they're not Semitic. The Semitics, actually, the Iranians and the Palestinians are the largest groups of Semitics.
Well, did you see that picture I think I sent you of the Israel Supreme Court? What they have there? Did you get that? The pyramid there? Oh my gosh, that is just nuts. Let's take a look here. I'm pulling up on the stream. Look at that dang thing. Look at it. That is the pyramid on our dollar bill. That thing right there. Let's try to get it.
Nice.
Yeah, it's green. It's got the eye on it. It's the same damn thing.
Yeah. Also, it's
It
if
looks
you
greenish
look at the
anyways.
pyramid itself, it's somewhat incomplete. There's that stone at the top that's kind of missing. If you were to take 4 dots, 3 dots, and 2 dots, and stick lines between them, it looks like they're saying 4, 3, 2. And then if you take 432 and divide it by the 13 steps of the pyramid, you get 33, which is the degrees of masonry.
Yep. No, it's the same thing as
yeah.
this Masonic pyramid they got outside of that new IRS building. Weird stuff. Weird stuff. I don't know. You know what's funny is right around this time where Freemasonry is being discussed a lot, we got this show that pops up on Netflix about Freemasons, and it's like this lighthearted documentary about Freemasons. They're not doing anything crazy, and they actually let the cameras behind so you can see the rituals, or some of them they won't show. But
and did you see Children's Day at the Bohemian Grove where the little kids all got their own owl hats and all that stuff? It was great.
Let's turn it into a circus. Yeah.
The bottom line is of all these organizations, right? Let's loosely classify them as all these organizations. Like we got the Jesuits, we got the Catholics, we got the Khazari Jews, we got the Freemasons, we got all these organizations, and they're all up to rotten stuff. But all the guys at the bottom are normal, right? We've all been duped. Jews, Freemasons, Catholics, everybody. We've all been duped
all in the
by
same
these
boat.
dudes at the top.
Yeah.
Yeah.
We're just crazy with this pyramid. What do you think it means? Do you think it's just them, just like... I mean, why would they do that? That's so crazy looking. It's just... I think they do that a lot, though. We've talked about this before, where whoever's in control, they throw these little... they kind of shove it in our own face a little bit, right? It's like, hey, we're doing this to you.
Look at Jay-Z's jacket. It says, do what thou wilt across the back. That's obviously a direct reference to Aleister Crowley.
Oh, yeah. You see that picture of Jay-Z. He was wearing that T-shirt. I'll pull that up, too. But yeah, he's a...
Yeah, they all do crazy stuff.
Yeah. Yeah, they're Satanists.
Then I want to bring... let's jump back into a little bit of history here. So we have Winston Churchill, right? Before he became, Mr. Winston Churchill prime minister, he wrote this thing called Zionism versus Bolshevism. Bolshevism being the bloodthirsty variety of Khazarian socialism, promulgated by Karl Marx, that took over Russia in 1917. Now, you remember how the Rothschilds swore they were going to destroy the Romanov family and kill every single one of them in 1871 when the Romanovs outed them for trying to start a world government in Europe.
Okay.
Well, guess what? The Rothschilds and American industrialists also, who were part of the Khazari mafia dudes, they funded the whole Russian Revolution. And obviously we know. I mean, obviously they had the whole Romanov family was bayoneted in in their beds and taken down, and then became a socialist state. Now, specifically, this is something that gets interesting because I want to jump back to 1871 again. There's a letter from Albert Pike, like the Grand Superior Lodge Master of Freemasons in America, and this is in 1871. Keep in mind, he wrote a letter to Mazzini in Italy, who was actually the founder of the mafia.
Ooh.
Now, Albert Pike, Andrew Johnson was the vice president under Lincoln, and when Lincoln was shot, Andrew Johnson became president, and when Andrew Johnson became president, he pardoned Albert Pike for his part in some of this stuff.
Yeah.
Now, Albert Pike has a letter, and this letter was actually just right up on the wall in the Royal Library until 1977, when the Baron Rothschild became a board member, and they quickly took the letter down. But I want to read the predictions of Albert Pike in his letter to Mazzini.
Okay. Predictions, huh? When was this written?
1871.
Wow, long time ago.
He says, and I quote, "The First World War must be brought about in order to permit the Illuminati to overthrow the powerful Khazars in Russia, and making that country a fortress of atheistic communism. The divergences caused by the agents of the Illuminati between the British and the Germanic empires will be used to create this war. At the end of the war, communism will be built and used in order to destroy other governments and to weaken the religions." Now, who did they kill when the Bolsheviks took over? They killed an estimated 60 million Christians, including 88,000 Orthodox priests in a single day. I mean, that's what they're famous for.
Yeah.
Now, the Second World War, and this is Albert Pike talking in 1871. In his letter, and this letter, again, is public information on file, the Second World War must be fomented by taking advantage of the differences between the fascists and the political Zionists. Which is what we saw happening. This war must be brought about so that the fascists are destroyed and the Zionists are strong enough to institute a sovereign state of Israel in Palestine. During the Second World War, international communism must become strong enough to balance Christendom, which would then be restrained and held in check until the time when we would need it for the final social cataclysm.
Uh-oh. Which we're probably in.
Well, hold on. He's talking about the Third World War after that.
Third World War.
The Third World War must be fomented by taking advantage of the differences caused by the agent of the Illuminati between the political Zionists and the leaders of the Islamic world. This war must be conducted in such a way that Islam and political Zionism mutually destroy each other. Meanwhile, the other nations, once more divided on this issue, will be constrained to fight to the point of complete physical, moral, spiritual, and economical exhaustion. We shall unleash the nihilists and the atheists and provoke a formidable social cataclysm which in all of its horror will show clearly to the nation the effect of absolute atheism, origin of savagery, and the most bloody of turmoil. Then everywhere the citizens, obliged to defend themselves against the world minority of revolutionaries, will exterminate those destroyers of civilization, and the multitude, disillusioned with Christianity, whose deistic spirits will from that moment be without compass or direction, anxious for an ideal but without knowing where to render its adoration, will receive the true light of Lucifer through the universal manifestation of the pure doctrine of Lucifer, finally brought out. Okay, this is a letter from 1871, and it was hanging on the damn wall in the British Library up until in 1977.
Holy crap, man.
And now, this is what kind of gives me hope, okay? I've skipped a whole bunch of stuff.
Let's get some hope going. We got hope, right?
There's just so much of this stuff, you know? I mean, my floor is covered with papers and books and documents and you name it. It's all over here, man. I'm not even covering half of what's going on, but I mean, we'll get to some of this. Let's bring it up to date so that everyone doesn't freak out before we get to the end, you know?
Well, it looks like we just had a car explode in Allentown. Happened at 9 p.m.
I got a friend from Allentown. I should give him a call. Find out what's going
Multiple
on there.
fatalities reported. Wow.
Car bombs in America. Can you say Banana Republic? You know.
Yeah.
Thank you, Antifa. You know.
Oh, jeez. Damn.
But yeah, there's now in the Third World War thing. In this portion of the Third World War, it says the war must be conducted in such a way that Islam and political Zionism mutually destroy each other. Islam and political Zionism mutually destroy each other.
Islam.
Now, you get, yeah. And political Zionism must destroy each other, Israel and the Islam, right?
Right.
Okay, now let's run this back to Zionism versus Bolshevism, which is an article by Winston Churchill before he ever became prime minister. And he says that Zionism must be supported against Bolshevism. And now I think we talked about Rockefeller versus Rothschild.
Yeah,
the
definitely.
two elephants
Yeah.
attempting,
That was on
maybe
our...
one of them's not stepping on us,
yeah,
right?
that was Alien Agenda podcast, yeah.
Yeah, it could be. So we got Zionism versus Bolshevism. Now here we have this guy, Albert Pike, saying that Zionism must be destroyed along with Islam, right?
Okay.
Now let's flash this forward to the Trump White House, okay? And we're also going to bring this around to the Federal Reserve too, because there's really cool shit happening at the Federal Reserve right now. Anyway,
Cool
let's
stuff.
bring this up to let's get ourselves up to today. We've got America bombing Syria, and apparently America's bombing both sides in Syria. And Israel has already sent 200 missions into Syria, including possibly using a nuclear weapon here a couple months back. But I mean, we'll get into that some other day if it's important.
Sure.
And we got Russia, we got Iran, we got Syria. They're all there, and the United States is bombing things. And Alex Jones is saying this is horrible. We're bombing Syria, which I think bombing people's bad. I don't know. I guess I agree with that. We're in Yemen. We've got soldiers in 177 different countries. All kinds of weird stuff going on. We're taking down various things left and right. You know what I mean?
It seems like
now,
it.
Who is political Zionism represented by currently? Well, obviously that's Israel, right? And you would expect the Rothschilds, because they fund both sides of every war, including both sides in the Syrian conflict, both sides in Yemen, both sides everywhere. They always fund both sides.
Yeah.
Yeah. If you follow the money, both sides always lead right back to Rothschild.
Usually, yeah. It
Now,
seems like that. You're making the case strong.
Yeah. Now, if okay, the Israelis have suddenly figured out this Albert Pike letter seems to imply that they're going to be destroyed by the Rothschilds.
Right.
Albert Pike being a Rothschild agent. Is it possible that now the Israelis, which I would say are the political Zionists versus the Bolshevik Zionists, is it possible that the Israelis, and because I was kind of worried that we seem to be promulgating the Israeli Zionist agenda,
Right.
which I've always associated with the Rothschilds.
Yeah, and some people have made that connection too in other places online. But it kind of seems like they might be on our side a little bit, maybe. Maybe this is true. Maybe they have figured that out.
In this case, this is the only instance that I can make sense of the fact that puts us on the side of anything good is if the Israelis have figured out that the end game is their own destruction, which it clearly says in the Albert Pike letter. And now Albert Pike totally called World War I. He totally called World War II. And, jumping back to World War II real quick.
Did he call it World War III? Did he say World War III? Did he say those words?
He said the third World War must be fomented by taking advantage of the differences caused, by the way. Identity politics is right out of the playbook of the protocols of the elders of Zion, right? Identity politics create differences, divide people.
Oh, yeah.
And people always say the protocols of the elders of Zion, hey, it's a conspiracy, it's not real, it's fake, it's a fraud, right? And I always look back at, because I have a copy of it sitting here, right? It's a big pile of 50 pages of stuff, and I've read most of it so far tonight, and it's chilling. Now people say, oh, it's not real, but when I read it, number one, it mirrors exactly what was found in the saddlebag of Jacob Lotz when his horse was struck by lightning, of Adam Weishaupt, who wrote the protocols for the French Revolution, right? The protocols of the elders of Zion directly mirrors that. Wow. Now, the other thing, this goes back to something Jimmy Kimmel said back when they used to have a cool show, the Man Show.
Oh, the Man Show, yeah, the girls on the trampolines. Oh, yeah.
Exactly. Viewers would write in and ask questions, right? So the viewer wrote in and asked a question. It's like, hey, if a woman has enormous breasts, but they're their augmented breasts by surgery, are they still real? And Jimmy Kimmel said, if they're there, they're real, right? Not that I like to quote Jimmy Kimmel a lot, but occasionally he says something really smart, right? So that's exactly what I would apply to the protocols of the elders of Zion. It doesn't matter if they're a forgery or not. If they're there, they're real, and they are very evidently being followed. Doesn't matter if they were. Doesn't matter what you think of their origin. They're being followed and utilized.
Right.
So now, if Israel has finally woken up and separated itself from the Rothschilds because they realize that under this letter from Albert Pike that they are in existential danger of being wiped out intentionally by the source of their own funding.
Yes.
That would
change
mean
things.
That Israel, in that case, that would put us against the Rothschilds working with Israel in the Middle East.
Yeah.
And the Middle East, because it's being covered on the news, like Syria is being covered on the news, et cetera, that means it's all kabuki theater. In other words, look for behind the curtain. There's something else there. Now, I've kind of been looking behind, So I could try to figure out anything, and I go back to trying to type in Rothschild to any term, and it helps. The Rothschilds are divesting themselves of property that they've been holding for hundreds of years right now. Like big estates in France, big mansions and stuff that they've held for. Why would the Rothschilds need to divest themselves of the Rothschilds never divest themselves of anything. They just own everything.
Right.
Okay, now if in fact somebody, because the Rothschilds, as we've seen in Eyes Wide Shut, the Stanley Kubrick movie, are actually satanic child abusers, satanic child molesters.
And maybe that's what they took out of that movie when they erased the 26 minutes. Some people have thought about that, yeah.
Now, if in fact Trump has activated his executive order against the Rothschilds, that means we could have substantially frozen a shitload of their funding, right?
Right.
Okay, so then I'm trying to figure out what the Federal Reserve has to say about this, because the Federal Reserve was instituted, of course, by the Rothschilds, right? And I just found this an hour ago. This sort of tied the whole thing together, right?
Yeah.
Because, I mean, hey, if the Federal Reserve speaks, E.F. Hutton listen. You know what I mean? it's a guaranteed there, buddy. You know what I mean?
Oh, yeah.
And, let's see if I can find this.
Yeah, I've told people before, though, that I said, in order to make America great again, truly, we have to get rid of the Federal Reserve.
Okay, now, hey.
Go ahead.
Oh, go ahead.
Oh, I was just going to say that, people forget what money was back in the day. Like, before the Titanic sank, you could take your dollar bills into the bank and get gold for it, because money was basically a convenience. Paper money was a convenience. It wasn't convenient to buy a dollar Coca-Cola and you had to chip away a little bit of gold. Money was just a convenient way of transactioning, something physical, something that was real gold.
Exactly.
Now it's a debit card's your convenience. And it's
but
what is a debit card?
Is
convenient for cash, which is backed up by debt, which isn't even really physical.
Only in terms of fractional reserve banking, though. When we had actual treasury notes during the periods of time when we did not have one of these fractional reserve Rothschild central banks, we had sound money and good economy. That's what I mean. What does Ron Paul always say? The key is sound money.
Well, before the Federal Reserve was installed, the really early 1900s and late 1800s, some economists have said that was the greatest growth of any economy ever known to history in the world.
It is. They are absolutely accurate.
Yeah.
And look how many of our presidents died. 7 of our presidents died defending against a Rothschild central bank.
Yes.
This is the real story of our history.
The
history books don't say any of this stuff. Now, here's a piece of hope porn for you, okay?
Holy cow, that's the first time I've heard that. Hope porn.
Well, I mean,
You're catching up with the times, Renaissance Ted. I'm loving it.
Well, we just talked about how we might finally be on the right side of foreign policy by
I hope so.
throwing if Israel has gone against the Federal Reserve because Israel's figured out that they're on the chopping block, right?
Right.
Not to say that their leaders, like Netanyahu or some of those guys, might easily throw them on the chopping block because it's part of the plan. They're in the club. I'm not sure, right? I mean, I'm not in the board meeting.
No, we don't know. We're just in the dark
here. But here, as of July, right? Okay, so the Board of Governors of the Federal Reserve has to have 7 members, right?
Okay. They're not elected. Who picks them, by the way?
Appointed.
Just real quick.
They're appointed by the president.
Really? Oh.
Yeah.
I didn't know the
and
president.
They're approved by the Senate.
Oh,
Okay, so I mean, it has to have. It's required to have 7 members, right?
right.
It currently has 3.
Really?
2 of the current members were put into their position by Donald Trump.
Wow.
So 2 out of 3 of the current Federal Reserve Board members were put into position by Donald Trump.
Okay.
2 more have been nominated by the president, are awaiting confirmation by the Senate. So I hope during this big Brett Kavanaugh blow up, which is obvious bullshit, but I'm happy with obvious bullshit because it keeps everybody's mind off the real shit.
Yeah.
Hey, what if they run through the confirmation of Trump's other 2 nominees for the Federal Reserve Board?
Yeah.
And then the president will nominate 2 more, and that gives them 6 out of 7.
That would be good. I hope.
Yep.
I hope so.
So,
I mean,
yeah, exactly. Now President Trump is speaking out against the Federal Reserve. Okay. Now, it's been 50 years since any president said boo about the Federal Reserve publicly. This is very unusual for a president to say the Federal Reserve is screwing us.
Especially after they say that they're not getting shot in the head.
Yeah, exactly. Well, I would, all those generals that Obama got rid of a couple years ago,
Yeah.
at the behest of the Rockefeller Bolshevik czars, essentially, right? Got rid of the military personnel who were actually useful for us, and only kept the crazy ass ones. All of those guys got together and formed an organization, and I wish I could remember what it was called, but it's slipping my brain, and I don't know where in the hell of this blizzard of paper in my room this name is. I've been looking for it for a while. I'm not finding it.
Okay.
But they formed their own organization. I think their organization was called America First.
Oh, wow.
And those are the guys who got together and talked to Donald Trump and say, hey, get in there and do something, and we'll try handle the military end of this whole shebang.
Yeah, they're saying that's how it all started, that they came to Trump and said, we got to take this country back. You got to run for president.
Exactly. Now,
because I just cannot imagine Trump and his golf buddies doing all this.
Exactly.
I think if it was Trump and his buddies like, hey, you gonna help me run the country, we're gonna fix it, and it's just like him and a bunch of random people, they'd all be done by now. There's got to be some intelligence, some kind of, there's something going on. Some guys with some real skill behind the scenes making shit happen here.
Yeah. Now, if we were looking at, here's the thing where I'm on the fence at, okay? If we're looking at an actual destruction of the Rothschild fractional reserve banking system of the world that's been fucking us for 200 years, 300 years, 400 years, if we are in fact looking at the destruction of that, this is exactly how it would look.
Yeah, well, that's what the QAnon people say. The Q says you are watching the, what does he say, the systematic destruction of the old guard.
Exactly. Now, if it's all just bullshit and kabuki theater, and we're all being sucked into this, and all of those of us who are trying to follow this stuff are being utterly hoodwinked, which I'm actually having trouble imagining right now because so much information is slipping out. It's like, how could they have all of it? You know what I mean?
Yeah, but you still got to have that thought, though, you know? You have to think that maybe this is all set up just to be like this. I mean, that's part of being who we are, right?
Yeah, and that goes back again to The Matrix, which I love to quote The Matrix a little bit, right?
Dude,
just because they say cool stuff.
That movie was made for people like us, just to, I mean.
In general, The Matrix movie, #1, the first movie was like, hey, okay, we're enslaved, we're captive, we're being used to generate wealth, which exactly, I think, describes the fractional reserve banking system.
Right.
Okay, the second movie is called Reloaded, right? Well, what happened? He said, this is the 6th time you've come to me, Neo, and every single time we've made a deal and reloaded. and the whole thing starts over again with the same system.
Yeah.
But they reload it.
Right.
Right? He's forced to make a decision, and in the past, he always made that decision. The third movie is called Revolution because he picked option, door C in the third movie or something like that, and said, screw you, we're not reloading again, we're going to go do something else.
Right.
So if we're looking at a reload, we've all been had. If we're looking at the real revolution, we have not been had, and the world is about to get better. Now, if Donald Trump, and by law he can, freeze the assets of pedophiles and confiscate them on behalf of the United States government.
Yep.
Okay, now the Rothschild fortune, I mean, this was 15 years ago. The Rothschild fortune was estimated at $500 trillion. And the Rothschilds
Wow.
are pedophile Satanists, and everybody knows it. So if we confiscate the entire wealth of the Rothschilds and all these other, and by the way, executives have been falling like flies out of companies lately.
Yeah,
and they're all
there's
the
a lot of
nasty, crazy
resignations and
executives.
stuff. A lot of
Yeah,
resignations.
yeah. The corporations, if they do not get rid of their satanic child molesting executives, they are going to be liable for confiscation and forfeiture under that executive order.
So, have you looked into this thing we've seen about that guy? He said that the Federal Reserve had lost they lost their ability to operate here, and the Treasury has taken over. Have you found any proof to that, or was that just a wild claim?
I don't know. I cannot find anything that they lost their charter, because that was one of everybody's problems with Obama, is that he renewed their charter.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And
Yeah.
so, however, I mean, if Obama, like people say, oh, we can't find his birth certificate, so he provided a birth certificate which easily could have been forged. That's not the important part. Obama's passport record is gone. That's what we can't fucking find.
Oh.
It doesn't
And
matter.
meanwhile, at
if you can fake up a
9/11,
birth
the towers
certificate.
fall down into a pile of rubble, and we can find the passports no problem.
Oh yeah,
They're right
not
there.
only that,
Look.
they're perfect. They're pristine.
Hell yeah.
And stuff went on at 9/11. Like the whole Able Danger group who is examining this fraudulent destruction of America's economy, they were all actually hit with a cruise missile
Wow.
from an Israeli submarine. So I mean, again, we got Israel playing both sides of the fence. We got Americans playing both sides of the fence. And all I'm hoping is the preponderance is the entire complex mishmash of all this stuff is what I think it is, which is finally the Israelis are waking up to the possibility of their own destruction at the hands of their own financiers.
Yep. Well, like you said, that thing by Albert Pike was written, what, over 100 years ago?
1871. He was talking about Nazis in 1871. Go figure that one.
Yeah. Wow.
I don't know if he called them Nazis. He called them fascists. So, but I mean,
Yeah.
Karl Marx wrote his manifesto, Communist Socialist / in 1846. I mean, and he was only writing what was told, he was supposed to codify a government system that was given to him by guys like, the Weishaupts and all those guys,
Yeah. Do you think they're going to take out the internet? Do you think, because like just a day or so ago, 50 million Facebook accounts got compromised. And some of these events happen where like Twitter will they'll do something to Trump's Twitter account or something, and they'll say, oh, it was a rogue employee, sorry, and they use these plausible deniability type excuses. Do you think they might try something with the internet? Because right now the internet's kicking their ass.
Well, this goes back to the key.
Anybody listening right now, it's the internet that I'm talking to you, that Ted's talking to you with. The reason we're all talking is because of the internet. Internet goes down, who we got to listen to? Whatever's on television.
Hey, if the internet goes down, I have about 10,000 books, and I've spent a good portion of my life reading, and most of it is stuff you cannot get at the library.
Where do you get it, man? Tell us.
I get it all over, man. I keep digging and digging and digging on these little publishing houses. They have the stuff that never gets published by the big publishing houses,
Yeah.
Little self-published things,
I got a book on my shelf over here. It's called Illusions, Tales of a Reluctant Messiah. And my name's Rich, and there's a guy in the story. He's the main character. His name's Rich.
Ooh,
And
nice.
he's learning
you
the
could be
secrets.
a reluctant Messiah.
He's learning the secrets of the illusion of reality by a guy named Donald. It's like, wow. Because I'm kind of learning some tricks from Donald Trump myself. This is crazy.
Shit. Speaking of which,
man.
there's a book I just got, right? And it's Out of the Matrix, right?
Is that the book?
And I found out
title? Yeah.
The book is called, no, that's not the book title.
Oh.
This comes from the movie The Matrix. If you look at the Matrix movie, right?
Oh, yeah, there was some books in there, yeah.
Yeah, Neo's got that book where he sticks his money and his program inside that fake book.
Yes.
Right?
Is that a Lord of the Rings book? What is it called?
It's actually a real book, and I ordered a copy, but that one went back to Minnesota,
yeah, but
so I haven't actually read it yet.
Wasn't it written by Tolkien?
No, it's called Simulacra and Simulacrum. And it's how you create the unreality matrix. So if anyone wants to figure out how to create the unreality matrix, it's detailed in that book, Simulacra and Simulacrum.
I'm just pulling it up here. Simulacra and Simulation?
Yeah,
that's the
it.
book
I'm sorry.
in the Matrix. There it is. Yeah.
Yeah. So I mean, I'm a book guy, so I gravitate towards books all the
Do you
time.
have
I
that
saw
book?
that. Right,
Yeah.
yeah, I got it. It's in Minnesota right now, but
Oh
I mean, I
man.
got the book.
Oh man.
So it's on my list of 500 to read that I haven't gotten to yet.
So, what's it about again? Oh, you haven't gotten to it yet. Okay.
Well, as I heard, like if you pull it up on Amazon, it'll give you a thumbnail. But it's about how to create unreality.
Wow. So, philosophical treatise in which he seeks to examine the relationships between reality, symbols, and society, in particular the significance and symbolism of culture and media involved in constructing an understanding of shared experience. Wow.
Yeah, and that's exactly what the Matrix is all about.
Huh.
You know? And now that's why I say everything, like people are like, God, how am I going to find this information? It's never, I don't have the resources to dive into the bowels of the Library of Congress in Washington because I'm in North Dakota. It's like, shit, it's all over the place. If a movie, here's my rule of thumb. If a movie is trying to tell you about a real event,
yeah,
it's fake.
Well, you know the connection.
If a movie,
Go ahead.
If a movie is trying to tell you about an imaginary event, it's real. That's just I just apply that across the board. I found it works very well.
Here's an image from the Matrix movie. It's in the scene where he's being interrogated.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Now look at this image up here. It's in the scene where he's being interrogated by the agents. Okay, after he gets captured, where he tries to escape that building, and he's like, "I can't do this. This is nuts," you know. There's a scene where he's being interrogated, and his passport is laying on the table. His passport, United States of America. And you can't see it because it's flipped upside down, but if you freeze that image on that movie and flip it around, here it is. It's on the screen right now. You guys are seeing it. Look at the date of expiration over here. What's that day? September 11th, 2001. Okay?
Oh,
This
wow.
movie came out in 1999, I believe. It was before this. Okay? That is not is that a coincidence? Huh?
Couldn't be. How about this? What room number is he in?
Well, I can't remember.
He's in room number 101. If you've ever read 1984 by George Orwell, that was the fear room.
Oh.
It's got to be tied into there.
His date of birth is September 13th, 1971. That's interesting. Huh. Capital City, USA.
He's a bit younger than me.
And it's a passport. That's what's funny. It's a passport, you know. It expires on that day, so that means it's going to be hard to travel after that day, right?
Yeah.
Or the passports just show up in the building rubble when the planes took out everything. But we found the terrorist passports right here, guys.
Yeah, and my second marriage was supposed to be on that day, and I was going to be married in a balloon, but my balloon got grounded, and then my balloon operator had a heart attack the next day. Never did get my money back. That was $1,100.
This guy's in the chat room, the legend. He says, right now in California, there is strange sounds like a helicopter turning on and off. Legend, is that from you, or is this something you're hearing online? Steer us in the right direction. That sounds weird. But so they do this symbological types. They put symbols in everything. So you think we're in the Matrix?
Oh, definitely. I mean, I thought the Matrix was the most apt ever depiction of reality that I have ever seen in my whole damn life.
It's pretty.
And
close.
I don't fully understand the revolution, other than the fact that what's happening right now could be it.
Yeah.
The Matrix Revolution, the third movie, this is either it or not it. It's either a reload or a revolution. If it's a reload, we're all just pissing up a rope here, right?
Yeah.
If it's the revolution, which it has all the hallmarks of being, I mean, if it's the reload, they are making it into the best-looking simulacrum of the revolution that we've ever seen.
Yeah.
And I just can't figure out. I mean, I know these guys are smart. The Rothschilds are smart. They're wicked. They're vicious. They're satanic, and so forth like that. But really, can they control us to the extent that everything I'm seeing is fabrication?
It's like my father tells me sometimes. He's like, "Doesn't this seem like it's the best movie you ever watched?" Why do you think people aren't go and see movies at the theater anymore? NFL's sucking. Well, NFL sucks anyways, but sorry, NFL fans. But, these type of places, these movies, NFL entertainment, bread and circus, it's not doing so well right now because we're watching something that we all have a stake in, right? You think so?
I think that's true, and I think that's one of the big credits I give to Q. Like again, the whole question they're trying to say on the media is Q real or not? That's not even the fucking question. The question is, if he's there, he's real.
Yeah.
Just like the breasts on Jimmy Kimmel. If it's there, it's real. Just because so many people are diving into so much stuff and digging into it themselves for instead of listening to the talking heads.
Yeah.
People are starting to wake up a little bit and go, okay, I'm going to dive into this. I'm going to dive into this. I'm going to jump into that.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, they're showing
and somebody's going to, everyone's got a piece of information they pick up someplace, and if we put some of these things together, which I'm a sweater maker, right? I grab a whole bunch of threads and try and make a sweater.
There you go. Perfect, man. I love that.
Yeah, I'm not the sheep shearer. I'm not the guy who raises the sheep.
Yeah.
I'm not the guy who spins the yarn on the spinning wheel. After the yarn is already made and the thread is out there running all over the place, I try and knit the thread into a sweater. That's what I do.
Yeah.
Yeah, and if you want to destroy my sweater, just pull the thread as I walk away.
So let's go here with this the reptilian brain, right? We got the left brain and the right brain. We got the left and the right now, right? Do you think there's some people that are left brain dominant, right brain dominant? Obviously, we got left, right everywhere. Is it the left part of the brain that's like analytical, logical, rigid, and then the other side is creative, emotional, loving, hopeful?
Yeah, or you could think about it like left brain is linear processing, right brain parallel leaps of intuition.
Yeah. And then we got people who are on the left who are too left, and people on the right who are too right. They're just too emotional, and the ones on the left are too logical. They don't have any, they can't see where, this is all bullshit, Ted. This is a crazy... This passport in the Matrix, that September 11th date right there you see, that's just a coincidence.
Oh yeah, coincidence theory. It's my favorite. It's my favorite response to conspiracy theory. People say that's a conspiracy.
Let's check.
I say no. Well, obviously, if it's not a conspiracy, which is simply two or more people operating towards a single goal, normally of nefarious purposes, that's a conspiracy. So I mean, there's conspiracies happening all over. We know about them. So, conspiracy theory. Sorry, my perception is. Reality is conspiracy in the way these people operate,
Well, it's funny that I just looked up when The Matrix was released. It was March 31st, 1999, so it was before that this passport in the movie had that date on it. Matrix Revolutions, October 27th, 2003. We've been hearing a lot about October, like that Economist, the front page of The Economist. Did I send you that picture? Did you see that? The Economist,
I might have
world currency. It was 30 years ago. Let's go ahead and pull it up here for everybody.
Is that like the cover in The Simpsons where it said cannibalism, the new world currency?
No, it's The Economist. It says get ready for a world currency, and it's the phoenix rising from the ashes of all these dollars. Look at its chest. It has a coin, and it says 10 2018. And
good. Hey, maybe it's a good year for us.
My wife had said that the phoenix was the first bird of the United States. I don't know if that's true.
Yeah, they always said it was the turkey, but I believe the phoenix would be a more apt metaphor.
Maybe, yeah.
And when they're saying rising from the ashes, based on the fact that our Constitution is loosely based on the Constitution of the Iroquois Federation, I would say the ashes that the phoenix is rising from are in fact the ashes of the Grand Tartaria Empire, which has been at battle with the Khazars, the Russians being on the front lines forever.
Yeah.
Since time immemorial. This goes back thousands of years. If you want to take it back thousands of years, it's the Khazars destroying the Tartars. Right? And the Grand Tartaria, they're the empire that's responsible for building all these amazing structures all over the world that are attributed to the Romans despite being in Africa or Russia or elsewhere.
Okay.
It's Grand Tartaria.
Yeah.
And Grand Tartaria stretched all the way across the entire northern hemisphere of the planet.
Wow.
And it's the biggest empire the world's ever had, and nobody hears about it.
Nope.
Nobody. And the Khazars the Khazars have been at war with the Tartars ever since time immemorial. They're the grand arch nemesis of each other, is the Tartars and the Khazars. So if we're a phoenix rising from any ashes whatsoever, we're rising from the ashes of what the Khazars did when they destroyed the Tatars. And the current heads of the Khazarian mafia are the Rothschilds.
Oh man. Yeah, what do you think, a lot of people say we're headed for civil war. We're headed for something's going to happen. There's pressure building, we're heading for an event, right? We're heading for something. But do you think that for new birth to come about, we have to go through extraordinary pain and suffering? That's just life, right? And they've got us so inverted, they got us so twisted. They think we're stupid. They think we're cattle. They got us branded. I was just at the mall today, and I was shopping for a jacket for my son. And there's a jacket at the mall that looked like a regular jacket. It was $850 because of the brand that was on it. It was like some spider jacket or something. I mean...
Yeah, I must be not keeping up with the Joneses, because I have a really cool leather jacket from the North American Fishing Club that I got for $5 over at the Goodwill. So.
Oh, there you go. That's what I need to do. Yeah, I left the mall right after that. But I mean, a lot of people, they can't, like the Matrix. Every person we haven't unplugged is a potential agent. They will fight for the system. They will fight for it. They don't want it to go bye-bye.
Yeah. One thing that gives me hope about that is currently in America, and I'm not sure if this is by design or by accident, we end up with this conservative-liberal split, right?
Yeah.
Where the liberals completely eschew firearms and demand that nobody has firearms, and the conservatives, I would place myself within that category currently, even though psychologically I'm liberal, which is why I do all this stuff. But that's classical liberal. The root word liberty, library.
Yeah, different kind of meaning behind that word.
So, yeah, exactly. So anyway, as it turns out, the conservatives believe in buying firearms. So, I mean, if we're going to have a civil war, I know I'd rather be on the side of the people who own the 300 million firearms in this country than the other side who really want to yell really loud and scream at people with bullhorns, but don't seem to think owning firearms is a good idea.
Yeah, right. Well, I mean, I don't know if we're going to get that far, but it's kind of hard to see, they're just getting so sloppy, man. They're in their desperation, they get sloppy. We talked about this earlier. What was it? They said they'd take away Ford's accusations if Trump didn't declassify some FISA stuff.
Oh yeah, that was another thing. I
tell
like
me about
that. I like using surface logic. Surface logic when you just apply the trivium method just to what you hear on the surface, right? So, and this goes back to the way they do news stories. If you've ever been in journalism school, they call it the inverted pyramid, the way they do a news story, where they splash the conclusion atop the cross of the page.
Yeah.
And then as it goes down in the story, they tell you about the things that led them to that conclusion, right? Now, the CIA always used to do it differently. They would write out a whole bunch of things that are happening, and then at the end of it, they would write numerous conclusions that could possibly be the conclusions of this information, correct?
Yes.
Under Obama, the CIA, under John Brennan, changed their reporting style to the reverse pyramid of the media, so they give the conclusion first and then backing to support that conclusion. In other words, they twist all the facts to the end that they desire, right?
Yeah.
So this, however, puts them in a very vulnerable position. And this goes back into, this is what I call surface logic, okay? Here's the big splashy headline, okay? Kavanaugh, possible multiple gang rapes apparently 450 women, though nobody's ever heard of this before, okay?
Yeah.
So that's all kind of implausible. Yeah, implausible right out the gate. Now, the Democrats, and I cannot recall which Democrat it was.
Pick one.
Yeah,
go ahead.
Pick one at the moment.
Throw a hat.
So yeah, and not that I love Republicans. They've hosed us over plenty, also. But at the moment they seem to be a little less damaging than the Democrats are. So anyway, one of the Democrats said, "Hey, we'll withdraw the accusations of sexual malfeasance against Brett Kavanaugh if you agree not to declassify the FISA court memos and documentation that we've been waiting so long for."
Yeah.
Now, Inspector General Horowitz, who brought us the 400-page report on all this stuff previously, which also on page 294, I believe, mentions that Hillary Clinton's on video molesting children.
Ooh. Dang.
That's in the congressional record now.
Really?
Okay, maybe it was page 194. Yeah.
Oh man.
That's Inspector General Horowitz's 400-page report specifically says that the Clintons are involved in child sex trafficking.
Yeah.
And that comes from the Anthony Weiner laptop.
Yeah. Yeah, a lot of that hasn't come out yet either. They had
Yeah,
this whole laptop.
yeah. So now surface logic, and that of course was because Huma Abedin was Hillary Clinton's campaign manager, and Anthony Weiner was Huma Abedin's husband. Now, Huma Abedin sent all the incriminating information she could find on Hillary Clinton to Anthony Weiner's laptop in a file marked insurance.
Yep, insurance
because so
file.
many people die, you know.
Wow.
So that's for insurance. Now, surface logic tells me that if the Democrats have offered to offered to pull the charges against Brett Kavanaugh, if Trump offers, if Trump agrees not to declassify all that information, which he, by the way, declassified, and Horowitz is working on the declassification right now, then that would imply that the charges are not real. How do you pull charges that are how do you take charges that are real and pull them back and just say, no, sorry, we're not going to have charges anymore?
Yeah.
They're obviously not real. That's just surface logic right there.
Yeah, what happened to that? Does anybody who... I know there's still some hanging on to the Democrats saying, oh, well, Brett probably did this. What do they think about that? You know, this is just beyond craziness. This is a damn shame.
Yeah, and that's why, you sent me that thing on Jeff Flake, and everyone's like hating Jeff Flake right now. It's like, if I were Donald Trump, I would take one of my senators from a blue district, and I would have him hold the whole thing up for an FBI investigation for a week to cover my tracks on something else.
Really?
I mean, if we're playing 4D chess, let's play 4D chess here.
Okay.
Assume that if it's public, if it's on the news, number one, the very first rule of the news is if it's on the news, it's not real.
Yeah.
That's
For more information on this story, avoid CNN, ABC.
Well, I use them as an indication of what they're trying to keep me from seeing.
Yeah.
I mean, I've started, like, when I look at the news right now, like, imagine if you took a newspaper and held it up, but a whole bunch of shit was cut out of it, so there was all these squares gone.
Yeah.
That's the way I look at the news right now, and I try to fill in the squares when I'm looking at it.
Yeah.
I assume that the things they left in are designed to make me think something. That's the simulation. That's the matrix. So, okay, what are they not telling me? That's the only way I look at the news, the mainstream news, is what are they not telling me? And that, by the way, includes Fox and everybody else.
Yeah.
What are they not telling me? If they're spending 2 months on Anna Nicole Smith, what are they not telling me that's going on in the meantime? You know? If they inject a whole bunch of sex into a situation, to me, that's a red flag. In fact, I was actually waiting for the sexual accusations against Brett Kavanaugh. I was waiting for them. I'm like, God, they haven't accused him of rape yet. You know, I mean, literally. And so when they accused him of rape, I just laughed. I'm like, ha, finally.
Well, they're doing this emergency test here coming up in a few days. Emergency test with President. Trump's voice slides to October 3rd.
Really?
It's an emergency test message sent from President Donald Trump as part of the Federal Emergency Management Agency system to warn the public in case of national emergencies, right?
Uh-huh.
The majority of cell phone users will receive an alert on Wednesday, October 3rd. That is in 4 days. Well, today's Sunday already, but Monday, Tuesday, a couple days. With the header, it'll say Presidential Alert, and the message, this is a test of the National Wireless Emergency Alert System. No action is needed. The initial...
Or it might say action is needed. I mean, I am a United States Marine.
You are.
So after, they say once a Marine, always a Marine.
Yeah.
And Marines serve at the pleasure of the president, regardless of whether you're discharged or not.
There you go. Yeah, and who else do we know that's like that? Well...
Ooh.
No, other Marines that are
hundreds of thousands. I don't know. I have any Marines who
obviously
Marines,
but I mean the ones that are in the play, so to speak, right? Yeah, it says the message will say this is a test, and it said the alert was initially scheduled to occur Thursday, September 20th, but somebody tells CNN the test October 3rd. I'm not at CNN. No, I'm at Fox.
9/4/20 I don't know. There's something in the numbers there. I'm not quite picking it up.
Well, you know what's funny is it's going to be 10/3, and what was Bill Cosby sentenced to jail for? 3 to 10 years.
Ah.
I don't know if there's a connection. That could just be a coincidence, folks. Don't listen to me. I'm crazy. All right?
I don't know. That's the way you start to get, though. You start putting things together. I
Start to
mean, the
sound
whole
crazy.
the whole world, as I look at it, is my own big Tom. I used to get bent out of shape about this. Go out. I'm like, oh, this is terrible. This is terrible.
Yeah.
And I've just learned to look at it like this is horrible. Neo woke up from the Matrix into a world of abject horror. It was terrible.
Yeah. Well, that's the first stage, right? First stage awakening is
Exactly.
is shock and anger. He was angry. He's like, no. And then what happens? He calms down. And...
Yeah, exactly. And so now I've gotten to the point where I look at the entire world is just my own personal, ongoing, unfolding Tom Clancy novel. It's out there in front of me. This is the story of our life. If this is 1,000 years from now, and this was to become mythological, they'd have the king of the gods, Trump, throwing lightning bolts at the king of the gods of the Red Shield, Rothschild. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
I mean, that's how this would be played out. That's how this would be described.
Yeah. No, it is the greatest movie ever witnessed and lived in, I think. I mean, it's got to be historic. It's got to be. I mean, this is not normal.
Yeah.
Maybe there was events in the past, but I don't know.
6 of them, apparently, 6 reloads.
This post on GOP, 30 days as of 9/17 until it all begins. This is important. It's time to get ready now. Today marks 30 days before the human versus vampire war begins. Human versus vampire. Huh.
That's a good analogy. I mean, what do you call it
He
when
says,
you're...
do not get the flu vaccine. Oh, he's talking about really vampires?
Oh, shit.
Oh.
Yeah, I never get vaccines, man. If you want to get Alzheimer's, here's how you get Alzheimer's.
Go get a vaccine.
Get your flu... Yeah, get your flu shot and take statin drugs. That's how you get Alzheimer's.
Statin?
Yeah, it's cholesterol drugs. Your brain's made out of cholesterol. So if you take statin drugs, it scrubs all the cholesterol out of your brain. And then if you get flu shots, it adds a bunch of ethyl mercury, which is thimerosal, into it, and a bunch of other neurotoxins.
So, do you think that at the top levels they are? Do you think they're still human at the top? Do you think it is demonic spirits? We hear about these exorcisms that happen, and even the priests have to be exorcised. Like the priests go in to do an exorcism, and they catch it, and then another priest has to come and do an exorcism on the priest that went in because it's so powerful that they're needing exorcists, and it's like. I don't know what to think about all that, but apparently it's real. I don't know.
Yeah, let's look at the hierarchy of the Catholic Church. I would argue that the hierarchy of the Catholic Church is utterly compromised right now. And keep in mind the Jesuits, who are the protectors of the Church, right? The Jesuits sprung right out of the Spanish Alumbra Illuminati.
Yeah, right.
They became the Jesuits. They just changed their name from Alumbra to Jesuits. So that's the point at which the Illuminati took over the Catholic Church. Not that the Catholic Church hierarchy has been a bunch of nice guys for an awful long time, but the Catholic Church, if you look at all their liturgy and all their standing up, sitting down, their Latin and their various things, this whole mother-child, the subservience of the Son of God to the mother, that's saying the principle of the sacred masculine is subservient to the principle of the devouring mother, which comes right out of Babylon. Right out of Babylon. It's just another aspect of the Babylonian Talmud.
Yeah.
It's there. It's right there in front of us. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And I know I always say everything's right there. If you collect enough threads, you're going to make a sweater. It's going to, or you're just going to get a big ball of string. I'm not sure how that works.
Right. Yeah, I mean, it does seem like there is, you look at some of these people, they're fighting for their lives. It's like, man, like Feinstein and some of these people, it's like, these people look like, I think they'd be cowards. Why do they keep fighting? Even, it's like, they're probably fighting for their damn lives. If they don't fight, they're going to be hanging from a doorknob.
Oh, exactly. I mean, well, that's it. I mean, if in fact, executive order assets of pedophiles are confiscated. And if we have an executive order that says we're going to have so many damn confiscations that we have to bolster the military tribunals with civilian officers in order to handle the volume.
Yeah.
And if, in fact, we have what is verified now, 51,500 indictments under Huber out of Utah.
Wow.
If that's, in fact, if all these things are true, which those particular 3 things are true, they point to something.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And now we got 40 Republicans retiring this year. 40 Republicans, including Paul Ryan, at the top of their political
Yeah,
careers.
they're not
40
running
Republicans.
again. That's weird.
Exactly.
That's different.
Or maybe they are running in a different way.
Running the opposite way.
Exactly.
No, that's
maybe
probably something historic too. Has that ever happened before?
No, usually there's 5, maybe 10.
Yeah, right.
On any given election
What the
cycle,
hell is
5 or
going
10
on,
retirees.
man?
I think it's connected to all the corporations getting rid of their top executives who are the satanic child molesters.
Yes, that's happening too. That's historic, I think. I don't think it's happened like this. There's so many of them.
Yeah, I mean, okay, if nothing else, just on, again, surface logic, if nothing else, something unprecedented is happening this year. Whatever that is. I mean, okay, we're theorizing what it might be. We're trying to tie this together into some kind of a sweater. There is a sweater there, I think.
Yeah. Threads are being made into a sweater.
Yeah.
I don't know, man. It's very weird. It's like a GLP, Godlike Productions. It's the top thing. They're watching this stuff like a hawk over there. I mean.
Oh yeah, and look at the Bolshevik Revolution in Russia. One of their primary goals was to destroy the Orthodox Church. That was one of their primary goals.
Right.
It says it right there in their list of goals. What does Putin do? He reinstitutes and encourages the Orthodox Church.
Yeah, that kind of ties into that Fatima miracle that I was going to talk to Stryker about. We were supposed to talk to him about it tonight, but we kind of ran a little long with Astro, which was great because Astro's an awesome dude, and we just it was a fascinating conversation. But I'm gonna probably get him next week or sometime. But yeah, this all ties into that, and the interesting thing about that is it's all centered around Russia. Like Russia needs to be consecrated, right? Russia needs to be consecrated.
Russia has been the front line of the battle against the Khazars. They have lost more people than anybody else. We had our own Stalin here. We had Roosevelt. 5 or 6 million people starved to death during the Great Depression, and that was by design. That was instituted and carried out by the Rothschilds with the help of Franklin Roosevelt. I mean, every single policy decision Franklin Roosevelt made torpedoed the economy every time it started to get better again.
Yeah.
I mean, Roosevelt was our Stalin. The Russians lost a lot more people than we did.
Well, the interesting thing about Roosevelt is he's the only president that has served 3 terms, and he got elected for a 4th term.
Oh, he would have gotten beaten in his 2nd term, except for Huey Long was assassinated when he ran against him.
Yeah.
So, I mean, there's a lot of not presidents who got assassinated, too, because like Franklin Roosevelt got challenged. And now keep in mind, after World War I, no Democrat could win any political office because Wilson took us into World War I.
Right.
Unnecessarily, completely unnecessarily. There was no reason for it other than the Rothschilds wanted to make some bank. Yeah. And everybody knew it back then. So nobody would vote Democrat at all, period. Yeah. Until Hoover came along, and Hoover is the one, with the help of the Rothschilds, who engineered the Great Depression, the initial crash.
Right.
So then everyone hated Hoover, and he was Republican, so they swept Franklin Roosevelt into office. And then they realized Franklin Roosevelt was a crackhead, too. I mean, I say that with the greatest possible compassion, but yeah, he was our own Stalin, right? And so Huey Long, coming out of his power base in Louisiana, was running against Roosevelt. And once again, we go back to the Golden Circle. We get John Wilkes Booth in the Golden Circle, and trying to remember who the heck assassinated. This was fairly important. I never did get to this, but
who assassinated
Huey Long? Huey Long he challenged Roosevelt, and he was assassinated. Right. Mm-hmm. Now there was a movie. It was a Dennis Hopper movie where he played a character named Huey Long. I can't remember the movie. Maybe one of the GLP guys can figure it out. Yeah, and he actually powerfully challenged FDR. However, an Illuminati member named Carl Austin Weiss shot Long. Okay. And then the doctor ensured, then this is the thing too, when you see all of our assassinated presidents, oftentimes they're tempted to be assassinated, it doesn't quite work, the doctor is right there to finish the job. So in this case, it was Dr. Arthur Bedreen ensured that Long did not recover from being shot. And then Long's bodyguard, Murphy Roden, shot both Weiss and Long again.
Wow.
And Roden was a spy for J. Edgar Hoover. Roden pumped 60 bullets into the assassin, which was Weiss.
Oh, man.
So how many times did you got to reload to pump 60 shots into a guy?
Yeah.
And this goes back again to exactly the game plan that was used with the Kennedy assassination. First off, we have the lone gunman, who apparently wasn't the gunman. Then we have the guy who shoots the lone gunman, Jack Ruby. And then Jack Ruby goes into prison. What does he die from? He dies from exactly the same fast-acting cancer virus that the CIA designed to use on Castro. So,
wow.
Bang! It's all covered. You get rid of
plague.
You get rid of the gunman. You get rid of the evidence. You get rid of any possibility of a court action where the guy gets tried, so that the information gets brought into discovery in court. Right.
Right. Maybe that's what Trump's whole idea is with this FBI thing. This has all got to be part of it too.
Oh, exactly. I mean, and Trump's like, hey, that's a good thing, whatever. I mean, I look at what he says, and it's like, and again, if he's playing 4D chess, which I believe this is what I've seen.
This is what's been going on, 4D chess. A lot of it.
Yeah, so if we're playing 4D chess, that means Flake is in on the joke. That's really all it means. Flake is in on the joke, so don't demonize him. I mean, he might be in a Democratic district, and he's hoping to get reelected. I don't know if he's up for reelection or not, but if he's in a sort of a purple-blue leaning district and he stops or at least is the only one who mounted a successful delay to the Kavanaugh thing, he'll get reelected if he's in a blue district.
Okay.
Because the Democrats don't realize what's all going on either.
No, and my wife had showed me something about the symbolism they use in the higher ups, like these Rothschilds, Illuminati. They use this symbolism on magazine covers, movies and stuff. That's their way of communicating with each other, to symbol to each other, hey, I'm on your side.
No, exactly. Or how about all the crazy commercials during the Super Bowl?
Oh, yeah, totally. Anderson Cooper and his mom, Gloria Anderson Cooper. Yeah. Did you see that image?
Oh, yeah, Anderson Cooper. Well, and you see that red checked wall behind them? That's always been symbolic of child molestation. That's why you see it at Pizzagate and all these other places. You see the red check cloth. It's symbolic of the cloth, a white towel used to wipe off the blood from. Is this too gross? It's symbolic of using the white towel to wipe off the blood of the children you raised.
Jeez.
That's what the whole red check thing.
Oh man, these people. Yeah, I don't know. Astrobuzz says Flake supposedly isn't running for re-election. He's probably one of the 40, huh? Yeah, Anderson Cooper's brother in this picture, he committed suicide, I guess. That's the story. Anyways.
Yeah. The strange thing about these Illuminati types is okay, this goes back to Rob. This jumps into Rob Reiner and Al Franken a little bit, right? Rob Reiner roast. Al Franken actually went up and said, Rob Reiner keeps on having all of his friends over to fuck his son. You said that in the roast.
Oh my gosh. Who said that?
And
Rob?
Al Franken.
Oh.
And Rob Reiner just sat there and turned absolutely red and had this look on his face like, I can't believe you said that, but it's true. That's what it looked like.
Really?
You know what I mean?
Yeah,
so these Illuminati types, they rape their own children to cause complete dissociation, and the children they have that they rape who survive into a dissociated adulthood, who turn psychopathic, those are the ones that they use to promulgate their agenda.
Yeah, look at Anderson Cooper, face of CNN. Yeah. Crazy.
Anderson Cooper, admitted CIA agent Anderson Cooper, just in case you were thinking Project Mockingbird wasn't real.
Yeah, and he's a Vanderbilt, isn't he? Or no?
Mm-hmm.
Well, his last name's Cooper. He must have got it from whoever his dad was or whatever there.
This goes back to one of the rules I mentioned earlier. Any person in the news or in the public light or whatever, just type in their name and then type the words real name right behind their name.
All right, let's
and
try
you'll
it.
See if
We're going to try it right now. Anderson Cooper, real name. Let's see. Anderson Hayes Cooper. Yeah, but I mean, we see this over and over again where they use the symbolism. Like that picture, we'll go back to it again so you guys can see it again. But this picture of them on the bed, I mean, look at what's going on up here. Let's see if I can't zoom in on that. I
And
mean,
keep in mind
there's a body in a box right here. And two angels on either side. Looks like angels or whatever. Demons. They're in red. Looks like they even got horns. Zoom in.
Yeah.
And
You should check that against some murals on the walls of the Denver International Airport.
Yeah, well, supposedly they took all those down, and they put up something else to kind of mock the conspiracy theorists. Did you see that?
No, I missed out on all that.
Oh, Denver Airport.
If they feel the need to officially mock something, I always assume that whatever it is they're officially mocking was real.
Yeah, well, this was I can't remember where I seen this. Oh, remodeling the lizard people's lair. Yeah, see, they put up these image. Open this image.
Yeah, maybe next week I'll do lizard people. I'm percolating
Look
something
at this.
pretty good for that.
Yeah, see, they're like, oh yeah, there's conspiracy theorists saying this is where lizard people are at, and they put up these images like this one here. I'm trying to put it in this.
Look what Princess Di said about the royal family. She said they're all a bunch of reptiles. You know.
Is that what she said? Oh, that's
yeah.
Yeah, see, they got the picture of the horse here.
Oh, that horse, by the way, is interesting. The artist who made the horse, one of my friends from Washington, fired off back to me after that episode. And
yeah.
He said that the artist who created the horse, he was just installing the head with the red eyes. The head fell down and crushed him to death, and then they put the head back on.
Well, like this person says, Denver International Airport is really trolling y'all conspiracy theorists. They're hanging up these things. They got the horse with the lasers coming out of his eyes, and it says, "Are we creating the world's greatest airport or preparing for the..." What does it say there? Come on. Oh. Couldn't see it. Could you guys? Let's see.
I think I mentioned last time.
Preparing for the
I did fly in
end
on
of the world. Yeah, or preparing for the end of the world is what it says.
Yeah, and they got all those underground, we got all the underground bases and all those other interesting things that we built,
Look at this.
They're preparing for something. Why would we build underground bases if they weren't planning on using them for something or another?
Yeah, they got an image here with the Mason symbol and then an eye on a hard hat. It says construction or cover up. This is what they're hanging up in the airport to troll conspiracy theorists. I'm not joking. They just started doing this.
Oh, nice. Yeah, I mean, and they did use a separate contractor for every stage of the underground excavation. They hired and fired hundreds, a whole bunch of different contractors.
Yeah, I mean, look at this one. I'm trying to zoom in on all this stuff, but it's not working out.
Yeah. I think I mentioned last time when I did fly into the Denver International Airport on a puddle jumper, there's these giant pyramids of earth, and if I could calculate the volumes of those pyramids of earth, that should tell me how big the installation underground is.
Yeah. Maybe, man. Well, you were really onto some stuff last time with the whole 432 hertz thing. I think I tried to tune my guitar to 432, and guess what? The string broke. I need to go get another string. But from what the strings I did have, it sounded pretty beautiful. Yeah, I liked it. See, this other one says...
The effect is kind of cumulative, actually.
Yeah, definitely.
It's a cumulative resonance. I mean, your pineal will resonate with other frequencies. However, if your pineal is resonating with the 432 frequency and the scale that goes along with it, then it's in resonance with the as above, so below principle.
Oh.
All the way up and down from microcosmic to macrocosmic, they all resonate in frequency with that 432 tuning structure. As far as you care to extend that Pythagorean tuning graph that we talked about,
Yeah. Well, that kind of brings into some people believing this is a simulation, but not the holographic universe theory, right? I mean, excuse me. You know how a hologram works, right? They shine a laser onto an object, it bounces off, and then it goes onto a photosensitive, a photograph. They make a photograph with it, and
that's possibly
and it looks
symbolic.
It looks like an interference pattern. It doesn't look like anything until you shine a laser back through it, and it creates a hologram, which is three-dimensional, and you can chop that hologram into a tiny... You can chop that picture into a tiny piece, shine a laser through it again, and it has the whole image still, even any little small part.
It's infinitely self-referential, and they use something mathematically with the lasers called a Fourier transform to lay down the image.
Oh,
and
okay.
I don't have the knowledge to describe that process. Though I did read that our brain lays down memory information using a Fourier transform also.
Yeah.
So our brain stores information the same way a hologram stores information in it.
Yeah.
Now, if our brain stores information that way, and again, applying the as above, so below, that would then imply that the universe lays down information that way. Now describing it as a hologram, to me, it's constrictive, which means that my brain might not be able to comprehend the vastness of the idea of that. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like I can say, hey, the universe is a simulation, but
right. How can we understand
it's such a big statement. There's so much more to it than that. You know what I mean?
It's a lot. It's not as easy as saying, "Oh, we could be on somebody's hard drive," and I don't know.
Yeah, it's different. That would just be a symbolic representation. But one thing that did cross my mind, and I don't know how to do this yet. I mean, mathematically, I don't know how to do this. Right?
Okay.
So we went through the Pythagorean tuning grid last time. With the x and y axis, right?
Right. Yeah.
If there's a Pythagorean tuning grid with an x and y axis, if there's a z-axis coming through that tuning grid, that makes it a three-dimensional tuning grid. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
I don't know mathematically how to do this yet. This is slightly beyond me, but I'm trying to figure out something because it's just wearing on my freaking brain about this. Why is it only in 2 dimensions? Why is there not a 3-dimensional component to the Pythagorean tuning grid? There should be, because if you do the cymatics experiments where you take the exact tones on the 432 tuning grid, the factor 9 grid, and you apply those tones through a tone generator, through a speaker onto the metal plate, and you throw the sand on, and you get the pretty pictures at those frequencies, right?
Yeah.
And the frequencies that give you the pretty pictures are the ones on the Pythagorean tuning grid. Now, if you take that and you use Eric Dollard's principle of the time television, which was a 3-dimensional cymatic chamber, and I don't know how to do this yet, but I'm trying to figure it out. Like, say you take the cymatic tones from the Pythagorean tuning grid and shoot them into a 3-dimensional matrix. In other words, a fluid matrix.
Okay.
This would bring us back to sonoluminescence again, right?
Oh, yeah.
Okay. Now, how do you freeze those 3-dimensional pictures into a medium where it stabilizes to the point where you can see it? You know what I mean? What would you use for your fluid medium in that case? Colored water? What would you use?
Gelatin?
You know what I mean?
I don't know. Crystal? Crystal.
Hey, when we frack oil wells, we use gelatin to hold the sand so it doesn't fall out of suspension.
Oh.
So that's your idea of gelatin. Hey, we could use frack gel if we can make it a little more transparent and suspend sand.
That's not
with,
green,
yeah.
sir.
we could suspend or in another case, what we used was food grade gelatin powder in fracking oil wells.
Oh, okay.
I'm not saying the rest of the crap we pumped down the oil wells was food grade by any stretch of the imagination.
Well,
but
crystal. What about crystal?
Used,
What about crystal? That's interesting. These crystal skulls we found and we've heard stuff about. Do you think there's anything to that? Maybe crystalline structure.
Can we suspend a crystal in a fluid? What fluid would we use so that it maintains the crystal in suspension and it doesn't just fall to the bottom and become a 2-dimensional cymatic picture again?
I see. Okay.
You know what I mean? Some sort of a gel-like fluid that would suspend the particles, and then when you shoot the cymatic frequencies into it, then they would be forced to align in a 3-dimensional matrix that would, because if you look at the flower of life that appears out of the frequencies that you tune through your cymatic experiment, right? Mm-hmm. That's a 2-dimensional representation, and if you just imagine that pattern extending above and below, in the case of a round pattern, you'd have to imagine a spherical pattern at that point in time. You should be able to create those patterns in 3 dimensions, and you could have an instant 3-dimensional printer. Like, bang!
Yeah.
So what you do is you shoot the sonic frequency into the gel-like fluid medium with your crystal and the substrate suspended within it, shoot the frequency through it, and freeze it on the frequency.
Okay.
Somehow freeze the fluid instantaneously, and you would be 3-dimensional printing the basic 3-dimensional structures of the universe.
Wow. I think you kind of lost me a little bit, but it sounds great.
Like I say, it's a work in progress. I'm trying to think about, if I can't describe it simply, that means I don't understand it. That's all it means when I can't get it across.
Yeah,
you know what I mean?
the whole thing with sound.
Yeah, and I very much understand that I don't quite understand the principles I'm talking about. These are all just things I'm throwing off the top of my head a little bit here.
No, yeah.
When,
Well, sonoluminescence is very interesting. I mean, how they're doing this, they don't really understand it. I mean, I don't know. There it is right there. There's a picture of it for all you. And supposedly that's real hot right there too, right? They can measure that temperature because it only happens for like a split moment. Oh, it's
oh yeah,
Jeff.
and
Oh, cool.
that's all people who that's called cavitation or shock wave.
Right, like
Basically shock wave. But I mean that's how people who work on this stuff very often blow their laboratories up. So
yeah,
you know?
yeah,
So there's a lot of power there, man. There's a lot of power.
yeah, yeah. I know. It is something else. It's something to see. But I wonder about electricity sometimes if we really have that figured out. Like like me and Astro were talking earlier about they were talking about using solar sails to go to distant planets by just
Hmm.
using a laser from Earth and shooting it up and hitting the sail and pushing it to wherever it needs to go. Because, like we see with the Crookes radiometer, is we can spin stuff in a vacuum with light. Because in a vacuum, the light heats the gases and it moves it. I mean, no other
But
time.
if it's a vacuum, if it's a vacuum, where are the gases?
That's what I'm thinking. I wonder sometimes if there was an ether, right, or an aether, or whatever Tesla was talking about.
Oh, I
What is light?
absolutely
What
believe
does
that
light
ether
travel
theory.
on? It doesn't have to travel on anything, or how does that make?
Well, they say light is particles that moves in waves, right?
Right,
Well,
right.
everything else in the world that I've ever seen or heard of that moves in waves has to have something that is waved. You know what I mean?
Yeah, right,
So if
right.
light is moving in waves, what is it that it is waving? It has to wave something if you're
That's
moving
what
in
I'm
waves.
thinking. How could it travel on nothing? Uh, uh, Maybe it's dark
So there's a
matter or something. I'm
yeah,
definitely not a
and well,
genius here, but
and
I'm just.
an interesting aside in this is if you remember James Clerk Maxwell, right, the guy who kind of formulated our basic electrical theory sort of back in 1873, right?
Yeah.
Okay, so he wrote his theory in 1873, and they said, "Oh, that's far too complex. Nobody will get that. We have to simplify this." So this guy named Oliver Heaviside rewrote his whole thing, and they brought it out as simply. But if you go back to the original text of James Clerk Maxwell's 1873 release of his information, it was dealing with some form of a mathematics called quaternions that looked like it actually constituted potentially a unified field theory all by itself using ether physics.
Wow. Yeah, and that's something we haven't done yet, supposedly, is unified relativity with quantum mechanics, right?
Yeah, I look at relativity and quantum mechanics as a 100-year mathematical cul-de-sac that we'll eventually wake up from when we get back to where we were when Tesla was around.
Oh, man. Great statement, my friend. Wow. Great statement. Wow. Yes, I think so. I think they knew things that we didn't, and, that's why Tesla's stuff is still classified to this day. You know how hard it is to get a Tesla coil? It's not that hard, but I mean,
You can build one.
yeah, you can build one if you're really good at soldering and stuff. I wanted to buy a Tesla coil once. I was like, I got money. I want to buy a Tesla coil. Just send it to my house. It's not as easy. It's probably easier nowadays, but I had to get a kit that I had to put together and solder and everything, and I ended up messing it up because I never soldered before, but I tried, and I just wanted a Tesla coil. I think you can buy them nowadays probably a little easier. This was a couple years ago that I tried. Maybe I just didn't know what the hell I was doing, but
Oh, yeah, and Donald Trump's uncle, John G. Trump, is the one who is actually brought in to look at all of Tesla's classified material after he died.
yeah, let's look up John G. Trump. And he worked for the DOD or something?
Yeah, he was a protege of Vannevar Bush, who was like one of the original kingpins in the whole UFO study in America.
Wow.
These are towering giants of that era. So John G. Trump was involved in the intelligence apparatus. So Donald Trump's not disconnected from the intelligence apparatus.
Yeah, he was. This is crazy. He's an American electrical engineer, inventor, and physicist.
Yeah.
and recipient of the U.S. President Ronald Reagan's National Medal of Science. Look at this. He was born August 21st, 1907, died February 21st, 1985, age 77. That's an interesting number, too. Wasn't it when Trump was inaugurated, he was, what was he, 70 years old, 7 months, 7 days when he was inaugurated?
Oh, really? I did not realize that.
Yeah. Yeah, I remember that. It's
That's
crazy.
one thing I like. You always bring things to my attention that I didn't know, and I have to add them to my percolation here.
Yeah,
now,
but
now Grandpa Homer Trump, he's an interesting cat too. He appears in the Delshow material, and like I said previously, I have kind of this book problem. Like some people collect alcohol or heroin. I collect books.
yeah.
And
That's a good.
I'm a book
Hey,
hoarder.
that's not a bad habit.
So anyway, there's this book of Delshow, Charles Delshow's paintings of the 1800s NIM Society airships that were all over America back in the 1890s.
That's what I need to look up, and also just checking on John G. Trump. He worked on Van de Graaff generators.
Now, the name Homer Trump appeared on the Delshow material, and the Delshow material, that was like $800-900 books, right? So I'm not going to buy that. However, it just hit Amazon and came, or I should say, one of the used ones on Amazon came down to $175. So I had to pull the trigger on it. I bought it.
When did you say these airships were? Airships? What year?
Oh, actually, you could look up, say, 1897, the giant airship flap of 1897. And these weren't like things just people saw in the sky. They landed and people talked to them and everything like that.
Look at this stuff. I wonder if they got a news clipping. Wow. Discovery surrounding it.
People in Texas reported that they landed and talked to them and everything, and they were just people.
Yeah.
with German accents, by the way, which kind of cuts through a lot of it. Like Betty and Barney Hill, they had the movie with James Earl Jones where they were abducted by aliens. Well, if you read Betty and Barney Hill's original story, they said, and there were guys in German uniforms who were human who seemed to be interacting with these people, but they never mentioned that in the movie. Now, if you look at the Fire in the Sky movie that they put out, from Travis Walton.
Mm-hmm.
And then you read the real story of what Travis Walton actually wrote in his book. It's different from the movie version in that in the movie version it was just a bunch of aliens who grabbed him and took him and everything like that. In the real version, he said there were humans involved. There were humans in the spacecraft, and they were talking to him, and then they took him to an underground facility someplace, apparently here.
Yeah, this we've just found a news clipping from, it looks like San Francisco, the San Francisco Call, November 23rd, 1896. A winged ship in the sky, it cleaves the air with pinions like a huge condor. All Sacramento sees the new wonder. The inventor's lawyer describes the machine and says it's genuine. It was seen soaring near San Jose at midnight. The Call's exclusive account of the greatest invention of the age is now corroborated by thousands.
And Charles Delshow's picture book depicts things that look exactly like what people were reporting and what were being reported in the news in not only San Francisco and Texas. Like the Society of NIM said that, yes, they look down on the gold rush from above. That's 1848.
Dude, this is really steampunk stuff here.
Absolutely.
This is cool.
And it goes into red matter and all that kind of stuff. You get into all that.
Yeah.
The red molecule, the red fluid.
This is crazy pictures here. They actually look like ships you'd see on the water. Wow.
Yeah, and that really expensive Delshow picture book, which I have not received yet, but it should be in my mailbox here pretty dang quick.
Yeah, you said that was the book that was like $800?
Yeah, and it went down to $175 there were 2 used copies available, so I hurry up and ordered one. I didn't know if it would get cheaper than that. Next week it'll probably be $50, or something. But for the moment, I got my copy on the way, so I'm going to dive into that a little bit and see what's there. It'll be really interesting to look at.
Definitely. Well, it's getting late, man. I think we should cut it here, but hey, thanks for coming on for this bonus segment, huh?
Not a problem. It's been a blast, man. It's always a pleasure to talk to you.
We got some people listening still. They're late nighters like us, man. Awesome.
Yeah, the stalwart soldiers.
All right, brother. Well, you take it easy. Everybody, Renaissance Ted, thanks for coming on, bro. Talking with me late at night, and yeah, we're gonna cut it off here, and it's been an interesting night though. Um, keep researching, man. We gotta learn. We gotta learn some more here. I think.
I can't help it. My brain does this all day long, and
Oh
it's kind of
yeah.
fun.
All right. I won't ask again. All
Oh,
right,
that's
man.
all right.
All right. You take it easy.
All right, thanks, man.
All right. Bye bye. Well, thanks for tuning in, everybody. I appreciate you guys listening. We'll have these podcasts up tomorrow sometime. And you can check us out at hiddenpathpodcast.com. Have a good night. Thanks for listening, man.